All right, here we are. We just watched Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and we'll have an exclusive podcast pretty much directly talking about Star Wars. Spoiler alert. So we will be ruining a lot of the film for all three of you listeners out there. So here we have with Nate Skinner, and we're going to talk about our thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. What's up, bro?
What is the spoiler alert timeline? I mean, how much time do you give somebody? Is
More
it
than a
7
week.
days? Is it 14 days
It's the
now?
20th. So we're at 9 days right now. I'd say at least
Since
a
the
week.
movie came out?
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I was just able to see it yesterday, so
That's true. Yeah.
I think that the tough thing now in today's kind of movie madness society, especially if you're on YouTube, is just trying to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, that is true.
You really got to be careful what you watch and what you listen to, because inevitably someone's going to ruin it for you. So, I'm really glad that I was able to go see it last night. And so you and I both just recently watched. So I watched the first of the new trilogy,
Yep.
Return of the Jedi, and then previously to that, it was the first one.
Yeah.
The first one of the new ones.
The Force
I guess.
Awakens. All right,
Yeah.
so we'll start our conversations then not start a conversation, but Force Awakens.
Right,
So
so-
7.
So we went back and we watched all. Now I can say I've watched all of the latest trilogy.
Yeah.
Right. Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and this one. And I know I've said this to you a little bit in the last couple days leading up to this podcast, but I think Last Jedi was better than people give it credit for, and I know that's a really divided thing among Star Wars fans, right?
Oh, so okay, so before we start, do we want to discuss this because I think
I
that's a giant lead in into the Rise.
I think you kind of have to go there.
I think we do.
Yeah,
okay,
because
so let's go there.
There was a lot of things
because
that
we're gonna have to because either that we start it now, at least give context instead of keep because I know we'll keep bringing it up over the next.
So let's just
hour and a
quickly,
half, yeah.
I guess, for the people here that have been living under a rock,
Yeah.
or maybe exposed to you for the first time based on your filmmaking abilities and whatever. The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
The name aged really poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. But The Last Jedi, to give context, though, too, is by far the most hated by the fans of Star Wars. Now, granted, episodes 1 through 3 are more criticized of how goofy they are. But when it came to, I don't want to say real filmmaking, but when it came to this new trilogy, if we're just focusing on this one, a lot of things reflected, I'd say current politics or current trends in our culture that people did not like that ended up being in the film, and also it's just a divided film in general. There's people that do love it, but I think that's more of a minority of people. Now, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is, but what Rian Johnson did when he wrote and directed it and the way that he took those characters kind of in a lot of opinions of a lot of fans, because again, we'll come back to this for Rise of Skywalker, Disney actually listened to the fans because Rise of Skywalker unintentionally or intentionally shit on fans, and those are the fans that kept this franchise alive for 40 years, which is, I mean, in itself, we can say that's pretty wild. I mean, 40 years, 41 years later, we're still talking about, 42 years later, we're still talking about Star Wars, how prominent it is, how much money it's making, The Mandalorian, all this other stuff. And The Last Jedi, like I said, it'll be divisive. We've all talked about it. Reviewers online, that's in the world we're in, people, the fans have a bigger voice than what they used to have, I think. And you can see it play out. Maybe because I'm on YouTube way more than most people should be on YouTube, but what they did with the Rise of Skywalker, they definitely listened to the fans and the complaints that they had about the Last Jedi moving forward with the Rise of Skywalker, because you can still kill a giant IP such as Star Wars, and they took a massive hit. Even though the Last Jedi did make $1 billion because everybody wanted to see it, it was the ripple effect caused from that, caused Solo not to make any money, caused them to delay 2 trilogy series, which are now completely cut off, and a lot of internal strife at Disney about Star Wars itself. So, and then we'll talk about, and so that's, I guess, the context of that, and then we can talk about The Last Jedi, what we thought of that, and then move forward with Rise of Skywalker. So go ahead, your take, because we both rewatched it this last week.
Yeah, so I've rewatched all 3 of the films now, or I've rewatched 2, watched 1.
Yeah.
Look, so at the end of The Last Jedi, I kind of felt like this movie isn't as bad as people made it out to be, and you kind of have to go back and rewatch
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
get
and
your
I
memory
agree.
refreshed
Yep.
as to what things were.
Yep.
I like some of the things that they did. Specifically, I thought that, so each character in the last 2 films,
Yeah.
it's kind of been like their swan song, right?
Yeah.
You go back to The Force Awakens, and it was Han Solo's swan song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Solo failed or did so poorly in the box office because of The Last Jedi. I think specifically it was because Solo is synonymous with one actor. Period. End of story. It's Harrison Ford. When you cast somebody to be a younger Harrison Ford, ultimately the audience is going to drop off because they're not seeing the guy that gave them the product that they wanted to watch. Just my opinion.
But then what would you say about Rogue One, though?
But everybody knew that Rogue One was kind of off into its own
Yeah.
space. I mean, they understood it didn't have like the opening scroll. I call it the Skywalker scroll because that scroll is now going to be only a part of Skywalker films.
Yeah.
It set up the independent standalone films, but it didn't have the guy that everybody fell in love with, and that's Harrison Ford. Mm-hmm. So I think a part of it was you lost, let's just say, half the audience based on the fact that you didn't have the actor that people identified with.
Which you wouldn't have anyways, though.
Right, but I mean that's just naturally kind of setting you up for like less audience, and then maybe there was some backlash from Return of the Jedi, or The Last Jedi, but I don't think that it was as bad a movie as people thought it was. I know that Mark Hamill was actively kind of disappointed with where he thought they were bringing his character arc. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you're making a bridge movie, which is the second act in a 3-part act. Mm-hmm. And I think what made so many Star Wars fans resent it or uncomfortable was the fact that Johnson tried to do something different. And at the end of the day, he kind of had to, because it allowed J.J. Abrams then to bring himself back to what the fans liked so much. So it's kind of a weird, for me, place to be, because it was a different film. Luke took a different tone, or it was kind of Organa's, or Leia Organa's swan song, if you will. It was her. Really, it was her. She was supposed to be the focal point in this last film, but her untimely death kind of stopped that from happening. Yeah. So it ended up becoming her last big piece. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, I thought it was fine. Was it like incredible? No. My wife particularly is nitpicking the part where the kid at the end of the movie, grabs the broom handle and it comes into his hand, right? Yeah. Through the Force. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, they didn't link that in at all in the last film, right? Yeah. In Return of in the Skywalker film, and it's just like, they didn't need to. The whole point was just saying that the Force is still there. Yeah, yeah. It's in the universe. It's out there. And, before we get into the new film, Finn and Poe both had elements of the Force in them. Because I think the Force is like fucking radiation. Like, if you're exposed to it, you're going to get it. Yeah. Right? Like, that's kind of how it works.
You have a little bit in you almost. It's like always like someone, you have a small amount.
Yeah, it's, if you're exposed to it, you're going to get it. Yeah, and that's just kind of...
Everybody can run at some point in their life. Exactly. It's just how long and how good and how fast.
We could have, you could have like a 10-part piece on like what the Force represents.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's some things in this last film, The Last Skywalker, that they kind of took the Force and just liberally painted it all over the walls. Yeah. And we'll get there. Yeah. But I really think that the way they set up the end of The Last Jedi allowed this film, for better or for worse. You what you said early in this episode here, you said something like, this has been around for 40 plus years. Mm-hmm. At some point, you're going to have a movie or two after 40 something years that is super divisive. Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
No,
and I'm okay with that. I embrace it.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think on the aspect of when it comes to now the writing and the direction of it, there's different tones and different places they want to take those characters. Now, granted, you can take the characters and then put them into situations that are different. But I think what really made the whole thing divisive with The Last Jedi, because it is like that. I know people, I've rewatched it. I'm like, look, it's not as bad as I think people say it was, but it's still, to me, it's still not that good on the aspect of where are you going with the series. Because if they would have just killed, let's say, Palpatine in the first trilogy, they just like killed him off randomly and he wasn't that big of a deal, then where the hell does it go? You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand it was now and I understand with the behind the scenes, I may be wrong about this, is that they didn't actually have an outline of where this was going. Apparently, I don't know. That's hard to believe, but apparently that's true. But at the same time, though, if you're taking that on, you have to continue that story. And I get that you're trying to make your mark on the series, but Rian Johnson did not make a good mark on the series. He wanted to make his own different mark, but honestly, he was not the one to write that. No, he could have directed it. Like, he could have directed whatever. Like, I love Looper, and I've heard the new...
Oh,
Looper's great.
Looper's
film.
great. Looper's
great film. And I've heard Knives Out is great too. So I'm like, I'm not doubting his abilities as a writer, director, or even as a director. But it's on the aspect of when it comes to certain series, you should not be handling that. And there should be people that have of where the story arc is going, or one person that it's coming from, i.e. Lawrence Kasdan or J.J. Abrams, because they co-wrote it, but Lawrence Kasdan did. Also, there's another dude who was brought on board for The Force Awakens that they should have probably stuck with. Now, granted, it's Disney. They try to make money. They got to move fast. I can't remember a guy's name, but he's in the pre-production behind the scenes of the DVD or Blu-ray. But with The Last Jedi, though, there's a lot of things that go wrong with it on the aspect of the entire subplot with Finn and Rose.
What went wrong with that?
The whole thing, it doesn't need to exist, because when they left and when they came back, nothing was gained. In fact, if anything, they took 2 steps back. Whereas typically when your character's going somewhere, they typically have to take 2 steps forward or step forward, somewhere that makes sense. Whereas all these convenient characters coming into play, now granted, if you want to expand the universe, then expand it, but expand it within the storyline. And everything changed. And on the aspect too, he took the universe at what it was. Now, granted, it's a big universe, but there are still rules established in all films, and every single, like the Batman series, there's rules established within that universe. Within Star Wars, there's still rules that are established that are either brought through filmmaking or brought through the writers. A lot of those rules were broken, and they don't make sense within the series. So, like I said, a big part was the whole Star Destroyer. They going right through the light speed. That's insane. Like, you had 3 other ships. Why didn't you do that before? Why didn't you burst them all into light speed? What happens into the Death Star? Why don't we throw in giant frigate ships light speed into every Death Star? It doesn't make sense. That's a giant rule change within the universe that doesn't compute and doesn't make sense. Also, a character that general, I can't remember what the hell her name was because nobody cared about her, that purple hair, and I agree. I think she was a horribly out of place character within this universe. Like, and there's aliens walking around, and she walks in with this weird frumpy looking dress and like a purple hair, and you're like, she's not in Star Wars. What the fuck is going on? And there's a slug next to her. You know what I mean? Like, you have you got a fish looking guy and you believe that, but as soon as she walks out with like purple hair and this weird dress from Ragstock, you're like, what the fuck is going on? But what I'm saying is, even her decisions as a character are not that of a general, and I'm not saying they have to be tactical, but they're just not good. Like her holding information from Poe about literally all they're doing is escaping to another nearby planet. Like, you couldn't tell your top wing commander that was such a secret that needed to be held, and that's just sheer incompetence. And to play her off as this great thing was ridiculous. Again, the character of Rose and Finn and them doing I liked how they expanded
Vice
the universe.
Admiral Holdo.
Yeah.
There
exactly,
you go. Yeah, played by Laura Dern, by the way.
Yeah, Laura Dern's great actress.
She's not a shab.
No, by no means. And all these other things too. I mean, like, even with Leia coming back into the ship, you're like, all right, things are starting to get stretched out a little bit. But hey, some of the aspects of with Luke, you can debate Luke all day. I get it. Where his character went.
Let me stop you real quick with Holdo, because one of the issues that I have, and I said this in the first podcast I was on with you, is, let me back up before I make this point about Holdo, so let me forget, because when I go to a movie like Star Wars, right, I go in to kind of take it in as the director gives it to me. Yeah. And by and large, I enjoy the film.
Yeah, you typically enjoy it.
There's a few things that bother you along the way, and you kind of feel like something didn't quite sit right. But it takes me a while to go back. So I'm a movie viewer who works in 2 different mindsets. I go to see a movie, and I watch it for what it is. And for the most part, I try to accept it as what it is, because that's what the director intends you to do. And I'm not doing it because I want to do what the director wants me to do. That's just, I want to go in and kind of give a film the benefit of the doubt. I then go home and I start reading on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I then go home and I start YouTubing everything.
Yeah.
And I start seeing why people are so upset. And I start to allow myself to see the spoiler alert videos and all that kind of stuff. So, with that being said, watching the film, The Last Jedi, I agree. Holo's character felt miscast.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit out of place. The purple hair was definitely different and kind of weird.
It was horribly written.
Her character really only, in my opinion, existed to show that there was this infinite faith in Leia's leadership. And at the end of the day, when Leia was down for the count and she was recovering and getting healed, she tapped who she trusts to make the best decisions. And at the end of the day, she kept Poe from those things because she felt like Poe was a hothead and a hot shot and, a maverick, right? Mm-hmm. So I understand where they were trying to go with it. Mm-hmm. The character, and I'll use this term a few times when talking about the latest film, but the character didn't hit for me. And I think that you're kind of saying the same thing. Yeah. The character just didn't quite hit, and I agree with you. It felt just out of place. Yeah. But as far as the character arc is concerned, it was really just there, in my opinion, to show the kind of weight that Leia Organa still had within the Resistance, and that someone will unquestionably follow her. And one of the things that bothers me is people are really mad about her decision to go light speed through the destroyer, which I thought they did a pretty good job of setting up as the only option.
It looked cool.
It looked great. But they set
ahead.
it up as the only option, right? She was the distraction. If we go back to this scene, the escape pods were trying to get to the planet where they could go to the old school base. And again, I don't have canon memorized, but they were trying to go to the original series areas where they had fights on the Salt world.
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay, I got to buy them time. Yeah. And I'm willing to sacrifice myself because I am willing to trust Organa with my life and what she stands for in her belief system. So I'm going to go light speed through there." And people, by and large, are very critical of that decision. They thought, well, why couldn't we just, like you just said, why couldn't we just do it with other ships? Why couldn't we just light speed through? Fine, whatever. But then you look at the decision that Finn made to try to sacrifice himself at the end of the film, and then his quasi-love interest knocks him off the path and takes him out.
That's terrible.
And people didn't really seem to mind his decision to sacrifice himself on behalf of the Resistance.
Because you have establishment with him, though. You cared about that.
I agree with that because Finn was in the first. But the point they're trying to make is it was still a reckless decision that was arguably based in stupidity that was forgiven because he was an established character versus, this general who decides to make this decision and ultimately does sacrifice herself for the betterment of the Resistance. And so the character didn't hit. It felt a little bit out of place, but I thought that her character in general, her arc, did a really good job of showing that above all else, everybody was willing to sacrifice for what the Resistance stood for. Mm-hmm. So if you put it in that nutshell, that's kind of how I was okay with who the character was and how she played.
Yeah.
But I understand the criticism because it really just didn't hit for me. It's like, who is this character? Why is she important? Yeah. Okay, she sacrificed herself.
Exactly.
Anybody could have done that. Mm-hmm. We didn't need the purple hair Lord Ern.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Well, the other aspect, though, too, I think, is that it's not a well-written character. It's not a well-played-out subplot, or plot, I guess you would say, because that's a main plot issue. Especially, look, Poe is firmly established. If we talk about characters and whatnot. Now, I get it, he's a hothead or whatever. You're talking about the guy that just helped destroy a dreadnought. You're talking about the guy that just blew up Starkiller Base. You're talking about the guy that actually got... managed to get the map for Luke Skywalker, or help bring that forward. You know what I'm saying? And this is the guy that you're going to want to protect the people that you're trying to save. So you're going to have to fill him in. So why would you then that's what I'm saying is there's certain things that are established in characters and story that you just bring this other character in and say, no, hey, Leia, didn't she demote you? I'm not telling you shit. Be well, then clearly you don't know who I am.
Right.
And he's not just some other peon. This dude is the top dog. He is almost one step below Leia. You know what I'm saying? even though they play.
Well, he goes on to become Leia effectively.
Yeah, effectively becomes a general now or whatever in the third.
He essentially takes command of the Resistance in the last film.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I get that.
What I'm saying is but with that, when it came to that whole light speed kamikaze thing, then if you're the greatest, this amazing, this mind of a general, you would have taken the other two, whatever, medical frigate and the other thing they had, and done that and escaped, because they wouldn't have been able to track you. And then, by the way, that whole subplot with Rose and Finn, they now come back. They've gotten them in a worse situation, which isn't good. And then, not only that, they know that they're escaping and escape. They destroy half of those escape pods. So none of this plan, if you would have just said, hey, this is our plan, Finn would have never left. Poe would have been understanding. Rose would have never been a character. And you would have actually been able to work forward. I mean, this isn't, I'm not, look.
But if they would have done that, there wouldn't have been the suspense. They wouldn't have had the build up. And
then write a better script.
Right. So that you can say is the crux of the issue.
Yeah.
It's the fact that
it's the logic of something that it's just not you. Like, even as a basic writer, you're like, this, they could have avoided all of this. And I'm not saying now. Granted, there's always scenarios in films you're like, oh, they did that, and that then propels this decision. I get it, but these decisions that they made were so far insignificant and ridiculous, especially for Star Wars is another standard of film. This isn't your Fast and Furious. This isn't your whatever popcorn flicks. These are well established within the film community. It's like Indiana Jones. Like, you don't, now granted, Indiana Jones is less than Star, or like when it comes to popularity, et cetera, but you still want a good story, you still want a good script, and you still want to make logical sense. And that's why I think a lot of fans were upset, because Rian Johnson, if you said, hey, Rian Johnson, I want you to write a standalone Star Wars film, let him. That's fine. If they would have taken that, changed all the characters, and made that a different film, it probably could have stood on its own. But you are in a trilogy, and he wanted to end. I hated the whole thing when they said they were going to subvert expectations. Subverting expectation is cutting Luke's hand off and saying, oh my God, that's Luke Skywalker's dad. That's subversion. Not writing a shitty script, killing characters off, ending storylines, knowing that there is another film, and saying fuck you to the fans. That's not subversion. That's just not good writing, and that's not gauging your audience. Like, you have to move forward with the trilogy. Now, granted, I think not to completely blame anything, but yeah, I'm going to blame everything on him, is the aspect of there should have been an outline going, or there should have been one consistent screenwriter writing all this, because this is Star Wars. Like, I don't know, I think Disney had some hubris going into it, not as they should. It's a massive IP, but you shit on the IP and you shit on these fans, which is what they did, and it starts to have a backlash, and you're shocked that you're not hitting numbers. Like, the Rise of Skywalker, from my standpoint, did not hit the numbers that Force Awakens did. And Force Awakens is a spitting image of A New Hope. No one's doubting that. But when it came to Last Jedi made money because everybody wanted to see the second one. We were all pumped. Like, I saw it, I was like, oh man, like, everybody's going out, love Force Awakens. Saw it 3 times, ready to go see Last Jedi, and everyone walked out of that theater going, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, if you walk out and you go, I don't know how I feel about that, that's not good. Like, even with The Rise of Skywalker, I was like, I really, really like this. There's things that I'm on board for, but I really, really liked it. And I did that with Force Awakens. I was like, not on board with everything. It's a direct image of A New Hope, but damn it, I loved it, and it entertained me. Everyone I knew that walked out of Last Jedi was like, man, I'm going to have to watch. It's weird. Like, the decisions that were made.
It felt different for a lot of fans. It felt different. And so it was weird. It was a weird feeling for them because it wasn't quite what they expected Luke to be.
But I wouldn't say not quite what they expect, because people go, well, it shouldn't be what you expected. Like, well, no, you were expecting a certain experience with Star Wars, and you have to stay within that, in those lines. Now, what you do in those lines, you can do a lot of things. But to completely go off and shit on the fans, or to say fuck the story because I don't know what agenda you have. Like I said, to kill off Snoke was ridiculous, and that's why we're putting context to. Then we'll eventually move into the Rise of Skywalker, because you see all these plot points come on a Rise of Skywalker that they had to basically reverse from the Last Jedi. And believe me, there's a lot of stuff in the Rise of Skywalker throwing shade at Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. There's a lot of stuff that people like, even stuff I was like, well, fuck yeah. That, like, I'm in the theater. I'm not a huge geek nerd for it, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, yeah, that was something that they said, fuck his last movie. They did. There's a bunch of stuff that they did. And they go, oh, I'm wrong. Like, that Luke Skywalker said that at one point. He goes, I'm wrong. You can tell Mark Hamill was happy to come back and to be gone of Rian Johnson and be like, because there's some things in there. I mean,
he literally did say in Rise of Skywalker,
I'm wrong.
I was wrong.
He catches the lightsaber after she throws it. What do you do in the first film?
Yeah.
I don't want my lightsaber. And dude, and there's some, like, you see, like, Mark Hamill in the behind the scenes, he's just like, I don't agree with where he's going, but he's the director, and I'm going to give the best performance I can as an actor would. But you gotta understand, though, Star Wars is different. This isn't Pirates of the Caribbean. Star Wars, like I said, transcends 40 years. And Mark Hamill is one of the big reasons why it still propels.
But let's take a second, though, and let's put ourselves in maybe... And again, I'm not trying to be an apologist for Johnson, because I actually agree with a lot of things you're saying here. But
and by the way, love Looper. Love it. It's just, I think he was a terrible choice, and I think he made bad decisions.
It in my opinion, it kind of comes down to, though, the fact that he knew that he had a bridge film. He wanted to kind of have his vision influenced in the third film. Mm-hmm. And so he was trying to make big enough decisions, big enough changes that would impact the rest of the universe. Mm-hmm. And J.J. Abrams, in my opinion, as well as he could, I agree with you. He did write off a lot of those changes in the final film, right?
And they had to recover it.
And they did for the most
part.
Yeah,
and I think so too. And then we can...
They did, but at the end of the day, I think that Johnson was tasked with a couple things. He wanted to leave his mark. He wanted to kind of change how people perceived Star Wars moving forward. He wanted to be able to have a different impact as far as how Luke Skywalker was and how he was perceived. And I don't think that it was really ever in Luke's DNA to just like sequester himself to an island in the middle of nowhere. And
can we bring that up real quick? His father murdered children. And and he was like, "I see the good in you." Like, it's granted, those films were 20 years apart, right. So you didn't quite know what Darth Vader did until you see Episode 3, and like he murdered children. I mean, so if you're trying to the Luke Skywalker stays pretty positive. I mean, his dad murdered children. It was
Anakin went.
Be redeemed,
it's crazy. Anakin went off the deep end.
Yeah.
But that's apparently what the dark side can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So go ahead.
I kind of look at it and I go, okay, Johnson was given the ability to make a bridge film, which he knew wasn't going to wrap up the series. It wasn't going to wrap anything up. He wanted to make some changes. He wanted to make changes that would go into the third film. I really don't think it was as bad as a lot of the reviewers made it out to be. I understand that it was divisive because it went against the mold. With that being said, I think that Hamill kind of, as a result, phoned it in.
For the second film?
Yeah, I really don't think that he presented us with a really good performance. I felt like it was stale. But it was uninspiring.
Yeah.
And sure, you could say that's part of the script. It's part of what he believed that the character should be. But I've listened to his work in the Joker video, when he plays the Joker in any of the Arkham video games that have come out by Rocksteady. Mm-hmm. And I've listened to his work on the cartoon series. And it's weird, too, because a lot of his work has been voice acting work. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen a whole lot of Mark Hamill on screen.
No, he did a lot of voice
acting. And his character, and I said I would refer to this phrase a few times, his character didn't hit for me in The Last Jedi. I appreciated it for what it was. I understood the symbology of what it was supposed to be. I appreciated that he eventually came around to be a teacher, because that's really what he was trying to do as a Jedi Master.
In generality, yeah.
But I kind of appreciated the fact that Kylo Ren had one view of what happened, and Luke Skywalker showed his view of what happened, and it was a big misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of like life, right? Like when people don't agree on something, it's generally speaking a big misunderstanding. Yeah. Now, you brought something up earlier, kind of off the podcast, that I 100% agree with. There was a part in the last film where they went to this different island, and it showed how all of these rich people made all this money based on all these all the poor and the underprivileged and all that kind of stuff. And like that was the film making a political statement that it really didn't need to make.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really kind of, in the moment, again, when I was watching the movie, is just like, how does Johnson want me to take this film?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool scene, cool city. I understand why they were going there, but it was to make a big political statement about the rich being the rich and taking advantage of the poor, and the poor uprising against the rich. It's just like, okay, did we really need to go there? Yeah. And I think that was kind of part of the problem with what the fans had, was they never really felt like they were being pushed an agenda before, and Johnson kind of decided to go there.
Yeah.
Which is why you're not monetized yet, so let's just. Which is why I'm so upset that this last film, and
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, I slipped my mind. why they decided to push an agenda at the end of the movie, and we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But
We'll get there. Which everybody does.
because really, Johnson could have just kept that for himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And Disney decided they needed to push the agenda.
Yep. No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay,
Yep.
so The Last Jedi, not as bad, would you agree, as people thought it was?
Not
in
as
general.
not as bad. I would say
Not
though,
a perfect film.
No, and no film is perfect.
Did some things against canon.
I
right?
think I think that it did a lot more damage to the series. I'm in that. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's as terrible as people say it is, but I do believe that the criticisms are valid, and it did a lot more damage than it did help the trilogy. And if Disney didn't think so, Disney would have not made those revisions that they did in Rise of Skywalker. So that's my take. And like, look, there's a few things that in Rise or Last Jedi that happened that I was like, oh man, that's great. Like, I'm glad they explored that, or I'm glad that was kind of a thing, you know, like that was pretty cool. There's like one or two things, and honestly, no other slipped in my mind, but it was like, oh, that's super cool. But I think J.J. Abrams he said about 2 weeks ago, Rian Johnson's just not the writer. Maybe the director. Maybe he could direct it. If he just had a film that was a script that said, "Hey, you could take it this way, and you're gonna whether you like it or not, but do your style of directing," they're like, "Okay, I think he would have been fine." But he's too much of a, which was a good point, as Abrams said, he's too much of a meta director. And which he is. I mean, look at Looper. Looper's about a guy that is about to shoot himself through time. It's a personal look. You're looking at people's psychology. You're looking at time travel. Like, it's meta, you know, whereas Star Wars is not meta. Like, we don't need to have Rey looking into herself and looking into multiple different Reys. This isn't a fucking Kurosawa film. This isn't a French New Wave. Get that shit out of here. God damn it. Like, it's one of those things that pissed me off.
They damn near brought it back in the last film.
Well, then that was one of the things. That's why people, you know what that whole thing was? That was a Kurosawa little element that he had with Rey, which some people give or take did not. I'm sorry, not Rey, with Kylo Ren.
But JJ was just about to do it when she went back to the old Death Star, and you could kind of see the whole scene was setting itself up again, where she was getting ready to go. The chamber door closed on its own.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see those mirrors.
Yeah.
It was almost, and I said to myself, are we about to relive the same scene from The Last Jedi?
But then it's like, but then you find out, oh, that's her. Well, when you see it, that, you know, find out the reveal.
Her alternate reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you give that a little more weight. Whereas like, it's like, oh, your parents were nobody, which again, will firmly establish they shit on half of Johnson's movie when it came to any of the furthering plot details, because they had to. Where the hell were you gonna go?
Right.
Where were you gonna go? Because and again, Johnson, I like how he did have Ben Solo and Rey talking to each other, and how he kind of wanted that. So that was a good thing that he did establish, because that was then carried on. But then you see how hard it was carried on in Rise of Skywalker, and if they would have finessed that more, again, it's hard for me to believe that they didn't have an outline. But then again, we're in the military and we see how fucking shit happens. You're like, okay, like maybe they didn't have an outline. Maybe they didn't have maybe they literally thought, don't worry, the writer director, he'll figure it out. And then it just falls apart and they're like, oh my God, we got to redeem this now?
Okay. So in the military, we have SLP, right?
Yeah.
We have things that if you're in an armor unit, if you're in an infantry unit, you've literally got a book in most companies.
Yeah.
That has an SOP of how you're supposed to clean your weapon, how you're supposed to PMCS, preventative maintenance checks and services, your vehicles, and you have an outline, right? Mm-hmm. You know why you're supposed to do something, why you're supposed to call in certain reports, right? It's called a Bible. Yeah. For my customers at work, I actually have a Bible for a couple of them. Yeah. If I have a side deal set up, if I have an agreement set up with them on the side, I have a Bible for it. Yeah. So, say what you will about the Rotten Tomatoes score, which I believe can be completely altered and 100% taken prisoner, as well as the Metacritic score as well. Yeah. One of the comments that I read last night on Flickster, which brings you to the Rotten Tomatoes scores, was that, and it was like actually a fan that went, I thought it was a pretty astute observation. The fan said, it was the audience review part. Mm-hmm. By the way, the audiences really liked this film, the new one.
The new one. Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah. Yep.
The audience member said, it's amazing to me that someone didn't help direct this movie using a Star Wars Bible. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think everything that you're critiquing about Johnson's directorial part as far as The Last Jedi. It comes down to the fact that he didn't have a book saying, here's what the canon says yes and no to.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's what it allows you to do with the Force. Here's what you can't do with the Force. There was nobody from any of the original films that were giving any influence into what he did. And in a lot of ways, I think J.J. Abrams probably had that kind of voice.
Well, J.J. Abrams
in the first film.
Well, he talks about it in the Star Trek.
The Force Awakens. I think he had that.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
Star Trek, he had that.
He's a massive fan.
Right.
Yeah, because he even said in the director's commentary on Star Trek, the first reboot or whatever, back in 2009, he said that on the commentary. He goes, I'm not a Trekkie. He's like, I'm not. He's like, this is not. He goes, I'm going to get crucified by fans. He's like, I'm not. He goes, I am a Star Wars guy. He goes, I know and love Star Wars, which was funny because then, 3 years later, they tapped him for Star Wars. But he is a Star Wars guy. And I think that's what helped him. And I agree with you.
Which is interesting because generally you have someone you say, are you Star Wars or are you Star Trek?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he did both.
I think I'm both.
Yeah.
I know you're not a Star Trek guy, but
Yeah.
I've watched.
I like the reboots, but I'm not.
I've watched a
into
lot of the original Star Trek TV
Yeah.
shows. I'm talking original series.
Yeah.
Enterprise. I mean, I've gone through the list, and I'm continuing actually to work through them today. But
Yeah.
there's a huge difference between both canons and both universes
yeah.
and how they approach space travel and what the purpose is.
Yeah.
But there was no official Bible. There was no guide. There was nothing there that brought Johnson into what he should do. And I think that Abrams
I think that he didn't want to. I mean, if you're taking on the biggest, one of the, if not the biggest franchises in movie history.
So when did Lucas quit having influence on his
when
films?
Disney bought it. Because Disney bought it and look, everybody.
So in my opinion, Disney's biggest mistake was not bringing Lucas in to say, where's your Star Wars Bible?
At least some things. Yeah, at least be like,
Right.
hey, what do you think of this? And he'd be like, you're insane. No.
Right.
And if there's look, he's got his own crazy story plots or whatever. But if there's if it's a established
And for
thing,
JJ, it would have been if you force heal a couple of things.
Yeah.
People are going to wonder why you weren't just force healing Darth Vader
Yeah.
back in the day.
Exactly. Or why were
we'll
you throwing
get there.
Star Cruisers into fucking other Star Cruisers? You know what I mean? Gary, we can agree with that. All right, so we are 37 minutes in.
Let's get
so
to
we've
the- let's
established
get to the new movie.
we've established The Last Jedi and its critiques, and because it is a big thing though to lead into.
you
have
had to go there.
We have to go into to The Last Jedi because it was what the result of what Rise of Skywalker is.
Right.
It is because Rise of Skywalker is the way it is because of Last Jedi. So
For better or worse.
For
they're
better or
linked.
worse.
They're linked.
Yep, they are linked. They have to be because people in the future are gonna be like, what the hell? If you look at this just not even as the series, but as a filmmaker, if you just step back and you show this to somebody who's never seen Star Wars in this trilogy, and they're like, there's 3 films, and they watch Last Jedi, they're gonna be like, what? What the hell is going on? And then they'll hop to the third one and be like, wait a minute, why did we just kill off all those storylines
Yeah,
and bring
yeah.
people?
I can see that.
Yeah, as just a regular person, if you're just writing stories, you would never make those decisions. Again, that's because. Honestly, honest to God, and it was kind of crazy that a giant company listened to its fans and actually said, okay, we're listening. We're going to do our best. Or we listened, we're going to take some intake and we're going to do our thing. Whatever they did, they listened and then they also took action to some degree. Because if they said F that, whatever, we're going to do whatever we wanted, then they would have never done what they did with Rise of Skywalker. There's no way. They brought J.J. Abrams back.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't risk a third director. They could have lost money, by the way.
I think you and I both agree was the right decision to make.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and by the way, Abrams, love him as a director.
Yeah.
He can be he's been a showrunner writer, but again, he's a showrunner writer. He's not writing the scripts every day. You know what I mean? There's people that are just strictly writers, and they're great writers, and they are in films, or in the screenwriting community. I think directors are the same way. You got to have a really good script. Like Michael Bay can direct the shit out of a movie, doesn't make sense, hardly ever, but if you gave him in his early days, he had really good scripts and he could deliver both. But now it's off. It's where it is. But Ridley Scott is he's not a writer, but goddamn, can he not direct a great film and make it coherent, and make it look good, and make you think, and that's a specific style, and which is kind of funny because somebody asked him hey, did they ever offer you Star Wars? And he was like, yeah. He said at one point they could not afford me, which is kind of a gangster move at the same time, also being
I mean, it really makes you wonder, though, if they couldn't afford him, if he just really wasn't willing to do it.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to do it. I think he literally goes, "You're gonna give me $30 million up front," and they're like, "No," you know what I mean? Because the directors, I mean, they make really good money, but Ridley Scott, his name has that pull. But again, honestly, I don't think Ridley Scott would have been a good fit for Star Wars. I really don't. I think he's a great film director.
The reason for that, though, is because I think Ridley Scott does really dark.
Yeah.
He does dark space films.
Yeah, and pacing. And like the way he moves the camera, he does great. He's a commercial director, but even like I think Abrams, maybe just because I saw Force Awakens, I'm like, that's the tone it should have been. And honestly, I would have been happy because he was like, I don't know if I want to touch this property. I'm like, dude, like you are the one they're relying on. They should have just been like 3 films. Whether you like it or not, you're doing all fucking 3. He did the fucking Star Trek movies. He did the follow-up sequel to that one. You know, and people didn't even like that one. It's like, dude.
No, that actually very poor with the fans and the box office.
Yeah, so why don't you just do it? Like, you love Star Wars, and at least it would have been a consistent style, because you can definitely see the style between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, or J.J. Abrams and any other film director. You can immediately see it when they go to a lower-tier film director or a different style, but typically it's a lower tier. Because once they start doing sequels, they start getting like second-rate, or not second-rate, but directors that are trying to prove their mark.
No, anybody who can't tell the difference between the first Abrams film to the last Abrams film with Johnson in the middle didn't watch all 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they felt completely different.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, though, again, controversial take, that I will tell you that I think felt different is that Abrams panders a lot. A lot of fanfare pandering, a lot of they're going to like this because they need a final send-off and this is for the fans. Johnson kind of threw up his middle finger and said, I'm not going to pander to anybody. And that's one of the things I liked about his style.
See, that's why people hated that.
Exactly.
Because the fans are what make this, though. I mean, how many nerd fans are there that read the books, that collect everything?
But at least
and you're going to throw a middle finger up to
something different.
But I think throwing the middle finger up to fans is not having the balls do something different. That's just being a dick.
I don't know. And that's why Star Wars fandom is split. I think it was a good thing that Star Wars fans were taken out of their comfort zone, because you know what? You shouldn't show up to a Star Wars movie and just know what you're going to get.
No, and I don't think people know what they're going to get, but they know that the universe that they're in is going to follow that some sort of storyline.
That's the other side of it. That's the other side of it. Yeah.
Because Snoke. We're like, because dude, coming into it, I'm like, where's Snoke going to go? Where's it going to be in the 3rd film? Because this is a trilogy. Who's Snoke? Where does he come from? What's going on?
That's where they could have just made Kylo Ren the main bad guy in this last film, and they didn't.
Here's the kicker. Where does Rey come from? She's nobody.
Okay,
here, hat trick. Sorry.
Right.
Rey is somebody big.
So I think it's time for us to set up Rise of the Skywalker.
Well, let's go into Rise of Skywalker.
So again, as I said earlier, I went in as a fan. I took the movie as I was, supposed to, in my opinion, from J.J. Abrams. Rise of Skywalker, for me, was a good film. There was a few things throughout that were really uncomfortable. And I really want to get into those. But I left the movie feeling... I remember kind of sitting there like this, like just leaning in on the... I was actually on the edge of my seat a lot. And I don't mean that like, metaphorically. I was literally like leaning into the screen, like really taking it in and trying to like just take every piece in of information, because the movie is so fast and it's so furious,
and they have so many plot lines
throwing so much at you that you're just like, oh my gosh, what happened to this plot line? What happened to that plot line? I just watched the last 2 films. Like, where's this? Where's that? I think that JJ did as good a job as he could have, given the fact that he wanted to keep it to, what was it, about a 2.5 runtime?
I think it's 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. And he had a lot of character arcs to take care of.
2 hours, 12 minutes, it looks like. Yeah.
And really, if I were JJ, I wouldn't have wanted this film. Because I
don't think anybody did.
No.
Not after Last Jedi. People are like, I don't want to fucking touch this with a 10-foot pole.
It's not even just based on that, but it's just the fact that you have to wrap up 40-odd something years of canon. Yeah. And you have to end the Skywalker scroll, as I call it, right? Yeah. That opening scroll of the words. And I saw a criticism last night that somebody was frustrated with the opening scroll. It's like, so let me get into that real quick. That's one of the things that really drives me nuts about why people have already divisive opinions about the Rise of the Skywalker, is because I think that for some reason my gut tells me that there's a lot of people out there that just are getting clickbait and views based on the fact that they want this film to fail.
Yeah, and I can see that.
And I'm not sure what led to that. If it was the revolt against Johnson, if it was just people hated the second film so much. That
Well, I think
wanted this one. But there's so many people out there just like, this is, if you go to YouTube today, you can just find endless videos now on people just saying, Skywalker bombs in the theaters. Skywalker's officially a rotten egg. It's a disgusting film. Like, it didn't do what it needed to do. It's officially a complete disaster for Disney. And where does Disney go from? I don't think that's the case. By and large, the film reviews have been really positive by audiences.
Yeah, most.
And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but Star Wars isn't up there to win any Emmys or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're going to win over fans. And they're going to continue to make sure that you go to Disney World to go see Galaxy's Edge.
And I think that's what Disney, I think that was the right play that Disney did, was they came back to fans. And you're right, J.J. Abrams, you're like, he's pandering fans as he should be pandering the fans. You can't shit on these fans. Now, you can take them in a different direction, but I think shitting on them, telling them fuck you to the base is not where you need to go. And I think that's what a lot of people felt about The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker, well, you're right. Like I said, we talked about the last shot of the film is literally a pandering to the fans. Like, even I was rolling my eyes a little bit. I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to end on Tatooine with the double...
But I didn't roll my eyes. I went, you know what? This is nice.
Yeah, but I was part of me was like, okay, you're wrapping up 40 years. It's a nice end. But part of me was, like I said, I liked it, but I was still rolling my eyes. Like, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I liked how it ended, but I was like, okay. Yeah, all right. I'm
going to roll my eyes if something is super unbelievable.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't unbelievable that she would go pay homage to Luke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was okay for me.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the end of the film.
We'll get to the other film. All right, so we'll start. So basically, the film starts off. I have the plot. It starts off with Kylo Ren finding Palpatine and also finding these little the warp fucking things.
Well,
the Wayfinder.
Let's kind of go based on the scroll, or let's go based on the opening scroll.
Okay.
Kylo Ren, according to the opening scroll, was furiously looking to find out
these Wayfinders. How to find, or he's hearing Palpatine.
He's looking to find out why Palpatine's voice is being broadcast throughout the entire galaxy.
Yep.
Because everybody knows that Palpatine died in the original 3 films. Toward the end, he died. And everybody knows that Palpatine's supposed to be a complete thing of the past, which is why you had Snoke. And where you go from Snoke, and the next general direction was going to be, okay, Kylo Ren becomes a made bad guy. But now it's not Kylo Ren. It's Palpatine, which I guess to defend your stance, shits all over Johnson.
Yeah.
But... he's looking to figure out what this broadcast is. Daisy Ridley is effectively trying to figure out how she can...
she's training as a Jedi.
Yep.
Essentially, so now we're at this part real quick. This is one of the things as we go, I want to say this is where Disney listened to fans. Because I like Rey as a character, but even from Force Awakens, a lot of people called her Mary Sue, which just means that in the filmmaking terms, that's just someone that everyone likes without her actually earning it. It's like a character, it's like developing the character. She's always good at everything. Everyone likes her. They hand everything off to her. Oh, we love her. She's great, blah, blah, blah. So that's just like a character trope that, it's, whatever. But that's something that you can see that was established, that people that had a big criticism of Force Awakens was that. And then Last Jedi, you kind of see her training slightly. The whole thing with Luke, she was trained, she wasn't. It was like this weird thing. But then you see her now training with Leia. And you can see that that's a fan criticism that they addressed. Like, however you spin it, even J.J. Abrams being a big fan, that's a big thing. You finally see her training as a Jedi. She took on Kylo Ren. Things are starting to make sense now, later. But even in the first film, she takes on a trained Jedi or a trained Sith who was trained as a Jedi.
Just kind of stumbling her way through the Force.
Stumbling her way through, and she literally bests him. And if they had established a little something, or maybe they should have made her bleed, made her bleed a little more in the first one. Like, I think they should have. Like, maybe get her injured more just to make her more, because she's not trained. Maybe she is special, but she's just not trained. Whereas now they're showing, it's a total fanfare, like, hey, we love you, fans. She's now training on all this stuff to become a Jedi. And then Leia is training her as she's like Master Leia or something like that, or maybe she said Master. I don't remember, but they do establish that. So to me, that's a legit concern that they address. I think that's cool. They address the fact that she has not been training, and now you see her on the planet training.
That's a big thing. That's one of the biggest plot holes of all 3 of the films.
What is her training to be a Jedi?
It really comes back to Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is this. He's tapped. He's tapped by the New Order.
Yeah.
Right, the First Order, the Empire.
Yeah.
He's tapped by the dark side
Now the final
to be the
order.
new guy. And he might be one of the weakest guys that they could have tapped because he is so vulnerable to the light.
Yeah, exactly.
He is so vulnerable to Organa.
Which, by the way, I
vulnerable to
did
Solo.
They started that in Last Jedi, but they definitely, obviously, they had to hit on that for this film, and I did love that. Like I love that.
When you look at a guy like Darth Vader, that's the guy that they tapped to begin with. There was nothing vulnerable about Darth Vader.
But they could see the dark side in him.
They could see the dark side, and you look at Snoke, who was really hard on Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And then you look at Palpatine, who was hard on Kylo Ren when he needed to be, but he wasn't when he probably should have been. And you just go, okay. They chose someone to lead the First Order who was ultimately extremely under qualified to do so. Mm-hmm. But the First Order throughout all the films has felt like they just don't really know who should lead them.
Yeah, yeah. And you also
just
don't know
like handpicking.
Also, they're like motivations almost. You're kind of like, well, they destroyed the Empire. And they always keep coming back with these super weapons. You're like, anybody, like, just as a basic logical thing, like, you might want to check in on them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like if, like, terrorists just around the world just walk around with nuclear bombs.
But Abrams kind of addressed that by saying, hey, we've got a spy now.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm saying as a whole in the trilogy, though, you're like, all right, we brought back another. All right. You know, go ahead.
To set the film up, we've got Kylo trying to figure out why Palpatine's around. You've got Rey training to effectively become a really good Jedi.
Yep.
And then the film kind of takes off to figure out kind of what's happening as far as why everybody's hearing a broadcast from Palpatine.
Yep.
And I feel like in the very
go ahead. The information they get, that was cool. That was a cool scene when it's Finn, Poe, the Slug. And they get the info, and they're in the Millennium Falcon. I can't remember if that's the second scene or the third scene, but I think it's the second scene right after Kylo Ren, and they're flying around, and they're in that little ice cave planet thing, and then I thought that was cool.
I felt like the whole.
I got nothing special to say about that.
Well, no, because cool.
I liked it.
My brain is ultimately going back to the fact that I think that they really Abrams shit the bed on Palpatine coming back.
Well, I don't even think they wanted to bring him back. I think they just hit the panic button. I honestly think
they did it because they needed, again, fanfare, something to tie into
they needed
the original
how do you
films.
recover from that? Where do you go from Last Jedi?
Again, though, where do you go is you just make Kylo the main bad guy.
You could have done that, but
and
then
instead,
but he's conflicted with the... but you still need an overwhelming amount.
This is why I'm so glad I didn't direct this movie.
Yeah.
Because you could sit here for hours and hours and hours.
You could, but like I said, I think it comes back that nobody you wouldn't want to direct it, but I think there should have been from day one someone at Disney saying, "You are the main story writer. Here's your room full of writers.
What you can and can't do.
Abrams, you direct. You give your inputs. Yeah. You're the director, and you are the head writer." And Lucas you're gonna write these 3 films, and we know before we even start production on the first film, we know what the end third film is, because then you can develop, and instead of being like winging it every movie, which apparently is what they did. So now we have, Last Jedi, and we have the Rise of Skywalker as a result.
The film has done $704 million worldwide so far.
Yeah, it's gonna crush. I think people like it enough where it's gonna crush.
Just over a week. And again, for those of you on camera watching on YouTube, obviously Ethan and I have.
We're 9 days in.
Let's take a step back real quick.
Yeah,
we've decided to progress a little bit. I brought an iPad. He brought his laptop out. The last time we did this, we just kind of talked out of our ass, in my opinion.
You're 53 minutes in.
Yeah.
We haven't got to
the film. We'll get there, promise.
We'll get there.
But that's the thing. You can choose what you want to listen to in a podcast.
You could talk about this for 4 hours. You could have a whole day.
We've decided to grab some iPads and some computers and just decide to actually...
I have the plot pulled up on Wikipedia.
Not sound super uneducated throughout the entire podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Just talking out our
because
ass.
Really, at the end of the day, your memory betrays you. But
yeah, exactly.
So... when you look at this, the movie's actually done really well. And right now, currently on IMDb anyway, which I think is, I guess for lack of a better term, more reliable, opposed to Metacritic or even Flickster, 7 out of 10 from audiences, which I'm okay with. It gets a 60 scores from reviewers at a 54%, which is pretty low. So
what was that?
That's the Metascore. It's a 54. on Metascore.
Okay.
But then again, you have other different metrics and different places that you can go to find different scores. So
I think-
Flickster has it at like
yeah.
84%.
I think the overall is literally C plus B minus, and anybody should be happy where you're landing on the end of 42
Sure.
years. You
It's
know,
just-
and you can't win them all.
It's just kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the whole thing. But so anyway, so the movie starts. They're all going to find out why Snoke is still alive. Kylo Ren just somehow walks up
Yeah. Oh,
and decides to show up at like.
Yep.
He just opens
well,
the
the
shop
Wayfinder
door.
thing, the Wayfinder stuff, they're like, you could tell they're like, we need to figure out a way to write this. And suddenly Kylo Ren's tracking down Wayfinders, which has never been established in the first two films.
And Luke has been looking for it.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's okay to me.
Which is fine.
Because in the first two films, the Wayfinder wasn't a thing. So what's Kylo been
Yeah.
doing in between? That's fine.
Yeah, but here's
It's
the kicker, though. But I agree. But I'm saying is then Palpatine gets brought in because of these and you could tell, you can definitely. I think everyone going into this that's even remotely a fan feels the struggle of the writing that is just in the plot. You know, like even if you were watching it, like even I'm sure Amanda would be like, they're bringing back Palpatine. You know, like people that aren't fans are like, the bad guy from the first trilogy, you're bringing him back. You know, like
Again, you could call it fanfare. You can call it fan service. The way they did it was right.
Yeah.
They made him look dead.
Yep.
They made him
I
feel
love that,
totally
yeah.
lifeless.
Yep.
So
They made it right. Yeah. Well, again, and like I said, when
To refresh the podcast audience,
Yep.
Palpatine is dead.
Yeah.
He died.
Yep.
The Sith kept him "quote unquote" alive.
Yep.
They
Yep.
kept his being
Being
alive
or something, because there's debates on that too. Whether is this a clone of the clone? Is it the original Palpatine? Is it his essence in a different body? There's all sorts of fan theories, which is fine.
What I didn't understand was how he said that he cloned Snoke.
Yeah. And
So where was Snoke before?
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Snoke was something he created. Oh, I think he meant like he's made other people like Snoke to influence. Like it's like
because
like
Snoke
he's-
has this big like
Yeah.
rip through his like
Yep.
scalp.
Yep.
And you wonder how that happened, which led me to believe in at least the last film that he had some kind of history that I would learn about.
Exactly.
And then they killed him off.
Yep. And it didn't matter. But
Didn't matter.
again, here's the thing. It was that when they brought him in, and then you see Snoke in a tank, and they're like, "Oh, I made him." Like they just totally like shit on Johnson again.
Right, like they're making more Snokes.
Yeah. He's like, "Don't you worry about the
Yeah.
fact that Johnson killed him off. Forget all about that. Here you go. Just forget. Why don't you just forget about that part of the movie, of the last film?" And so anyway, so then they go. He finds Palpatine. I loved the set that they had Palpatine in. I loved the whole world, or like that giant cube thing or whatever, and he's underneath, and you go underneath, and it's these giant monolith, statues that are like 200 feet high. I loved. Eventually, you see more and more throughout the film, but him hanging on this giant machine that brings him around with tubes, and then you see them in the Coliseum. Mm-hmm. Loved all that. The visual and the essence of that in the film, loved it. Like that, I love. And that's a little bit further on in the film, so we'll go back towards the beginning. But yeah, then they brought back Palpatine. You're like, all right, they brought back Palpatine. Got it. We heard about it. And then from there, and then what was it? What's he got to do then after that?
So effectively, he goes and he finds out that Palpatine's alive.
Yep.
He finds out that Palpatine has been. So one of the critiques is, where's all this fleet come from? Palpatine's
That is a
building
big critique, though.
Palpatine has this huge fleet, and every one of the Star Destroyers,
Has
ship
a full
cruisers,
crew.
has a full ability to knock down an island or a world.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Palpatine arguably, and he even said it in the film, he goes, I've been building this in the background since the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is why I have a hard time with some people that are like, how did he do that? How did he get that done? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
He's had 44 years to
Yeah.
build this entire fleet.
But
That's how he did it.
And and I get it. I understand
long
that
time.
aspect, but on the same aspect too. And like, if you would have said 100, I would have been like, I believe it. But when he says 1,000, like I was like, ah. And then the other thing though too was the crews that run it. I mean, I know they had clones, but it's like you had full crew in every one of those, and those,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like it's just like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The U.S. finds out Croatia has been building 1,000 warships that are fully manned, and you're like, out of nowhere.
Someone's question is going to be, where did he get all the parts, materials,
or
and
like
labor,
Germany, like you know, because obviously we keep going back to like the Nazis.
Okay,
You know, you're like, oh,
that's
we
also
overlooked
reading
that,
way
you know.
too much into the film.
I get
than
it.
We're intended to.
I get it. Yep.
And that's why like so many of the YouTubers that are critical of the film are reading so much into it.
Yeah. I think they want something to hate.
Thank you.
They
They
want something to
are.
hate.
They're just
They do.
saying, hey, how do I go back and rip this? Because as a film goer who's supposed to go and be entertained and feel like they're wrapping up the saga, you don't care
Yeah.
how long it's taken them to build the fleet.
Yeah.
These are people that are making their money by going back and literally watching the movie
Yep.
and taking notes in the theater
Yep.
and saying, this doesn't make sense. This
Yeah.
doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Well, JJ wasn't concerned with that.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
No, I agree.
He was concerned with putting a bow and a tie on this Skywalker
And to
timeline.
establish, like, obviously towards the beginning and the end of this podcast, I borderline loved it. Like, I really, really, really like this movie. Like, I am on board. It does wrap everything, because it has to wrap everything up. So you see the ending to a lot of things. Like, it has almost too much sustenance, but at the same time, you're like, you know what? You had to go there. You had to put it in. You had to establish. You had to
also
finish
see
it.
some bullshit endings to a few things. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You see the ending of Chewbacca only to be betrayed.
Oh, here we go. Can we?
You see the ending of C-3PO only to be betrayed.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
come on. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
All right, so let's go into that. Let's go. So they go. So they go into, and this is the connection that I heard somebody wrote about, or I don't know who established this, but they wrote an article before the film came out that you needed to see the episode 7 of Mandalorian before you saw Rise of Skywalker, because Baby Yoda, spoiler alert, force heals Carl Weathers. And Carl Weathers, by the way, super pumped that he's in the Mandalorian, and Bill Burr. Oh, you don't like Mandalorian? Anyway, so
let me eat my pickle.
Okay,
We'll get there in a little bit.
Baby Yoda, force heals, which we're like, okay, like I can kind of, that's kind of cool because he's a Baby Yoda, and, you know, and then
But he's not.
yeah, but then when you he's
In the
not,
timeline,
we
he's not.
know it's not Baby Yoda. We just call him Baby Yoda. So Rey does this. They go to the sand planet, which is, you know, they're having this big festival, whatever. They're trying to find a wayfinder. They find the ship. They end up falling into this pit, which again is a character plot, which that whole scene shouldn't even exist. They fall through the sand.
I'm glad you brought that up.
They fall through the sand.
Yeah.
She heals a giant worm. It's not even a character. Like, it's not even a character you like. It goes away. They walk out. You could tell they had to shoot that and put it in the film, because not anywhere in the film, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were like, we need to establish her doing this.
But you're missing the biggest plot hole in the entire thing. Maybe it's not a plot hole. You're missing
The
one of
fact
the
that
biggest faux pas of the whole scene.
The fact that she can do that, or what?
No, that's fine. Like, we've seen force healing in other canon. That's whatever. It's
But
overused.
first established in the films, though. I know canon is canon, but you got to also think of the fans that are just fans of films.
Okay, fine.
Because I'm a film fan, I'm not a
What
canon
bothers me is John Boyega's Finn saying, "Oh, I got something I really want to tell you, Rey."
fan. Oh, yeah.
And then he doesn't say it.
Oh, it doesn't pay off, you're right.
Because the quicksand takes him under.
Yep.
Later on in the so
Finn
the
and him-
next scene,
yeah.
you got Poe saying, "What were you trying to tell Rey?" Next to Rey, that's like you saying to our buddy Brandon,
Yeah.
"Hey Brandon, I want to tell you a secret." I hear you say that, and I say, "Hey Ethan, what's your secret?" And you go, "Well, I'll tell
And
Brandon
there's
separately."
never saying it. Yeah.
Right, because now I feel like I'm left out of something, which
Yeah.
whatever, and Poe just
Yeah.
goes, "Whatever, no big
No,
deal."
and I agree with you. That's not a, yeah.
But it never resurfaces in the.
Yep.
Actually, it does resurface in the film. Later on in the film, Rey says something like, "I maybe I'm misremembering this, but it's something like they bring it up again in the film where, what were you trying to tell me?" And he goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll tell you later." They do the same stick again.
Yeah, yeah.
And never
Pays off.
do you figure out
Yeah, what he was trying to say to her.
what Finn was about to tell Rey.
Yeah.
Was he going to say, "Rey, I love you"?
Yeah.
Was he going to say, "Rey, I know you're a Palpatine"? Was he going to say, "Rey, you're stronger in the Force than I ever imagined"?
Imagine, I'm
can
proud
do
of you.
anything"? Like,
yeah, you go,
don't
girl.
know.
yeah, and they never say it.
There's
yeah.
this moment where you
Yeah.
go, "Oh my gosh, once
Yep.
they fall through the quicksand, I'm going to get the payoff."
Yeah, yeah.
And they just
Leave it.
you hanging.
Yep. And I think that's something that they had written to the script they're shooting. Because so this is a little out of the not out of the film, but this is the behind the scenes stuff that I've been reading into for the last about month. Is that they They had 3 acts. They were showing all 3 acts to test audiences. First act test super high. Second act was testing medium. Third act, people hated. Like test audiences that were at Disney, they were pushing the panic button for the last like 4 or 5 months. They had reshoots all the way up till about 3-4 weeks ago. And that was Disney just going boom, boom, boom. And there's people with inside Disney that were like writing to Reddit and all stuff that were like PAs, screenwriter, like, hey, I'm working on, like, they're big fans. Because there's a division within Lucasfilm, too. There's people that hated Last Jedi and people, it's basically Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams fans. And there's a divide because J.J. Abrams loves Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy is kind of like a Disney exec, whatever. Yep. And so there's a divide within the company of Lucasfilm. And so there's people that were fans of JJ, like, they're fucking this up. This is what's going wrong. And they're, like, letting people know, So, and that was, I guess, one of the things, which now I come back to that point where Finn is telling, I think we can all safely assume that he was going to tell her he loved her, because in the first film, you can see that chemistry where they're like, they're coming up together or something along those lines. But it doesn't pay off, and I think that's something that was left on the cutting room floor because they had to keep reshooting and re-editing the third act. And you also see Ben Solo. Okay, we'll get to that too as well. But Ben Solo and Rey basically kind of hooking up at the end of the film, and I think they had to kill off. Even though I don't know why you would then leave it in though. I guess maybe I don't know. It's crazy. Because it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't go anywhere. There's no payoff. It's like just completely killing off an entire storyline.
The problem though with Finn saying that to Rey again, and to kind of counteract my point, to rip The Last Jedi, is that Rose effectively had a love angle set up with Finn.
Yeah, which again,
and so you wouldn't expect Finn to say, "Hey Daisy Ridley, hey Rey, I love you. I have feelings for you."
Which is another thing why people
because
Last Jedi.
Then you've got people that think that like Poe and Finn have some thing with each other.
No, they're just bros.
No, I'm just saying like, but there's
whoever's
enough,
saying
there's
that
enough
that's
fan
such a
theory
stretch.
out there that
such
are like,
stretch.
well, what are these guys
That's
doing?
an insane stretch.
But then you see the.
It's an insane
I digress.
stretch.
Well,
I know what you're saying. I'm getting at. It's such an insane stretch.
The point is you have a love interest introduced when in actuality
within Rose,
you could argue that Finn and Poe have more of a thing than Rose ever did.
Yeah, well,
but then you have
because he was like, "Why are you kissing me?"
It was a random scene.
It was, yeah.
And then you have Finn saying, "Hey Daisy, I have something to say to you. Hey Rey, I got to tell you a secret."
Yeah.
Right in front of Poe, and then he says, "Hey Poe, fuck you. I'm not going to tell you what I was going to tell her."
Yeah.
It was so awkward and it was so out of place. And it had no point in being in the film.
See, if they would have I agree with you.
Explained.
I agree with you. If they would have just left that out, that whole subplot out, then you would have forgot about kind of the chemistry in Force Awakens, where they're kind of like, you could tell there's that like about each other. They're like, oh, I can't. You can tell you can sense it. Whereas, and he's always like, you can tell he's trying to like hit on her or like just be charming. And if they would have just left that on the cutting room floor, that would have been fine. But you're right, it doesn't pay off. There's like 2 or 3 times, and you're like, this goes nowhere. And then by the end of the film, you feel a little bit conflicted because you're like, well, I kind of like Finn. Now she's like kissing Ben Solo, so where do we go? Because I was a Finn fan. I was hoping that they were, because I didn't quite see that coming, which I liked. I thought if it would have been better established, and it was cool. I did like it. Again, conflicted. Ben Solo and Rey like kind of hooking up, I like that, but it just wasn't as well established as I would like it to have been, because from Force Awakens you have Finn and Rey coming up together. You would think by the end,
Rey kind of feels like she's up for grabs.
Yeah, she's up for grabs anybody. Yeah, she's just kind of like whatever.
Just grab her and take her. I mean, that's
it's like she's like, I don't care anymore.
She's anybody's for the taking. And she's just like, oh wow, I'll go with the flow.
Yeah. So okay, so we go on from there. So you have So
she touches the worm and she force heals the worm, and that's how they get out of the.
And they establish that as a character trait.
Chewie quote unquote dies. And
oh my god, dude! You know how fucking pissed I got about that.
But you knew it. You could tell
I didn't.
It wasn't real.
Part of me, literally, like I was like, "Are you Ryan Johnson me right now?" I was sitting in the theater going, "Did you just fucking Ryan Johnson me?"
So you really thought?
I did. I thought they did, dude. And I was like, that is the piss poor. Dude, I was angry. I was like, that is a piss poor fucking way for Chewbacca to go after 42 years. Dude, I was furious. And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, and you're like, and I was like, oh, good, thank God. And then I was
2
like,
seconds later, he's with the Empire or the
seconds
New
later-
Order.
2 seconds later, I'm relieved and also going, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
That's the shittiest plot point. They're
And
like, oh,
it's
he was
not-
on another transport.
And
You,
it's,
it's
only the first time they're going to do it to you in the film, too.
Not only that, like, they do it like 2 more. Oh, by the way, in film you have rules of 3. I'm pretty sure they do it 3 times. I'm sure if we rewatch it, you'd find it 3 times that they do that.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say Leia dying and then coming back at the last scene.
Oh,
But whatever. Okay, so they go on. They decide to, again, we're spoiling the hell out of the film, but they decide they're going to go figure out how to find this map.
This Wayfinder.
To get to the Wayfinder, to get to the Sith, right?
Yep.
That leads you to, effectively, if we're really fast-forwarding.
They go to the next planet. They go to that planet.
Yep, it leads
with
you to-
C-3PO, who's read a dagger.
Yep. It leads you to a planet where they have one of the biggest plot holes in all of Star Wars, in my opinion. And this is 100% on J.J. Abrams. It actually kind of gives me a headache. C-3PO is arguably one of the most advanced droids ever built in the universe.
Yeah.
Right? Built like a human, talks like a human, has emotions like a human, whatever.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he was built by what, Anakin?
Yeah, he was
So
built
he's
by
a
Anakin.
really old droid.
Really old. He's like
But he's
60 years old.
super advanced, so he must be upgrading his own shit.
Yeah.
You never really see like R2
Yeah.
having like a heartfelt scene with him like you usually do in all the movies with C-3PO, which was kind of a letdown. But
Yeah.
what you really see is you see 3PO kind of becoming just kind of a plot convenience.
Yeah.
I can read the dagger. So they find this dagger, for those of you who haven't seen it or who forgot. They find this dagger, which tells you essentially where you can find the Sith. Okay. Yeah. The dagger itself has its own problems that we'll get into in just a second.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like shit. It feels like shit.
Yeah.
And it acts like shit.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. So he goes, oh, well, my programming doesn't allow me to read to you what Sith language says because it's forbidden, which is the biggest piece of bullshit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So then they go ahead and they have to introduce this character, Baba Frick, who is...
the little dude?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like Baba Frick, right? Like,
yeah.
he's
I
a
was
cool-
kind of like, I'm with this.
He's a cool kid, yeah.
He's like
Yeah,
a Russian almost.
right.
Like, he's like,
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
So they have to wipe 3PO's memory, and this is the moment where you're getting the Chewie is about to die moment where you go, wow, we're about to lose 3PO.
Yeah.
Because just the way I was led to believe that we lost Chewie.
Yeah. They tease it in the trailer too. Yeah.
Oh, Ethan, here's the deal for
Yeah.
me. Like, I feel like this is the last movie in what was it? Was 9 movies total?
9 total, yeah. 9.
It's the last one. You know what? You should be killing off some of these main characters.
Yeah, I
okay?
agree.
Han's dead.
Yep.
You might as well kill Chewie.
Yep.
3PO can be a sacrifice as well. He's just a droid.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should kill Chewie. I understand why they kept him alive,
Yeah.
but
Or at least it'd go on a hero's death, like some big epic
something.
Yeah.
I'm fine if they kill off 3PO. I'm thinking to myself, God, this feels kind of dirty
Yeah.
because I love 3PO.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Yeah.
It's to keep the plot moving forward. It's to get me to the final scene, whatever.
And they don't even give a shit about 3PO. They don't even care about him.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, but then again, though, Luke would have more than anybody else.
That's true. Yeah.
So they're like, okay, fine. Well, you know, and Boyega's character Finn goes, you know what? Nothing is more important than this. We have to kind of sacrifice the droid. Is it Frick is hilarious.
Yeah.
Baba Frick or whatever.
Yeah.
Hilarious. 3PO comes back. He starts talking in Sith, right? Mm-hmm. Frick's whole plot point was to be able to reprogram this guy, despite the fact that it was really hard to do. He's the only one in the universe who can do it. Whatever, fine, cool. And then
Well, then you get
R2-D2 fixes 3PO in a couple scenes later.
You have a death of a character and it brings him back.
Yep, right. 3PO's gone, right?
Yeah,
because
he's
one
gone.
of the issues was if we do this, we're going to erase his memory. So it was kind of funny when he came back and he goes, I've
never been in a star battle. It's my first star battle or something.
He reads off the Sith map to the group so they know where to go now. And then Frick hits a couple buttons and 3PO comes back and 3PO It's just like he was in the very first film where he's introducing himself and he's like, "Oh, I am C-3PO, I'm whatever." And then Frick hilariously is like, "Well, I'm Baba Frick." And then he goes, "Nice to meet you, Baba Frick." And it's a hilarious scene. And that's one of the things that Star Wars has done so well. Even Johnson was able to do this. He was able to bring in some of that comedy relief that has always been existent in the universe, right? Which everybody just kind of loves. And Johnson did that despite the flaws of the film. And J.J. Abrams continued it, which I love. But they made taking away a character feel so superficial for me.
I agree.
That when they eventually, and we'll get here in a couple minutes, when they eventually took Carrie Fisher away, I didn't give a fuck.
You didn't care anymore.
I was actually relieved.
Yeah, you kind of were, because
let's get there in a second.
Well, So they also introduced a character, Zori Bliss. Which is Poe's acquaintance. By the way, it never pays off either. Well, it pays off, but it doesn't pay off. She's there, and he's like, "We want to make out," and she's like, "No," and I'm like, well, "Why the fuck is she here?" And they show up. She's not even like, she's like.
They show her eyes, and she looks super attractive.
That's
and you're
Carrie.
Hoping.
Who is that? That's played by Carrie Russell.
Oh, that was Carrie Russell?
That was Carrie Russell.
Okay. I didn't even realize that because she was behind a mask the whole time.
The whole time. Yeah.
So I know she's not as attractive as...
That never pays off too, by the way. Okay. She never takes off a mask. So then it's like, well, then you're leaving this whole other plot point with her and Poe.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see Poe's history a little bit.
Okay, but was it though?
Yeah. Well,
no, let's get into that.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit of Poe's history.
They want to talk about Poe's history. Let's get there. Because they go, well, he used to sell spice. What the fuck is spice?
Yeah, what is...
I've never heard of this.
What is spice?
I don't know what spice is, and why should I care?
Yeah. Apparently spice is like cocaine almost. They're like, oh, you were a cocaine runner.
Spice sounds like something kids do when they're 17 years old.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, it's not quite cocaine or, heroin, but, it's
bad enough where people are like, you ran spice?
It's a gateway drug.
I can't believe you ran spice.
Oh my God. I had zero emotional investment into how bad of a guy he was for running spice.
Yeah, exactly.
But they tried to make it sound like it was something that the universe was just known. And I'm sorry, but you can't just introduce a concept to me without teaching me for the last 44 years.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But at least it gave him a little bit of history, though. Like, it just in a general sense, you got a little history.
It developed him a little bit more.
A little bit more.
He ran something that he shouldn't have been. Fine,
I agree. Okay, so then they go on from there. Rey recovers the dagger. Oh, that's right. They have that fight, that little mind fight thing inside the ship.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that was good.
I loved how they brought back Darth Vader's... They brought back his
helmet. Yep.
They effectively dropped it right in front of Kylo Ren. That's something that Rian Johnson again started that I really like.
Here's the kicker, though. They said "fuck you" to Rian Johnson.
How?
What did he do in the second film? Destroys his helmet. What did they do in the third film?
They fixed it. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. He goes, take off that stupid helmet. They essentially put it back on him in the third film to make him more menacing. I mean, like, let's be honest.
And it really wasn't more menacing.
Well, but as
they just ran some.
But as a bad guy, though, if you have like a helmet, like in general, I get it. Like, so that was kind of a crazy thing, even in Force Awakens when he does take the helmet off and you realize that who he is. It does bring him down like a level of like, oh, we can humanize him.
Yep.
But putting a mask on though does make him stronger almost. It kind of does. It really does.
Well, sure. If you and I put a mask on, we went out in general public, we'd feel like different people.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying is like in The Last Jedi, it was like, take off that stupid mask. And you're kind of like, dude, you realize one of the most powerful Sith wore a mask.
Vader.
He's trying to emphasize. It's like saying something like, stop running. Who cares if the most athletic people run? Stop it. It's like, no, that's kind of part of the essence of being a bad guy or trying to be intimidating is wearing this uniform, this mask. And like say, and like I said, I thought that was hilarious too, is they took his mask and then they fucking redid it and he threw it on, which by the way looked kind of cool with the red lines. I thought it looked cool.
I thought it looked cool when there was some kind of monkey that was building it.
Yeah, that was weird. It was like a monkey. It was a straight monkey.
I felt like I was watching an episode of like Planet of the Apes.
It was a monkey.
It was a flat out baboon.
Yeah, it was a flat out baboon. It was
building and then he had like this like jeweler's eye thing. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we couldn't even like, at least in the opening scene with the Millennium Falcon, they had a slug. It was like a slug in the back.
I can believe a slug in the universe.
Dude, I was laughing so hard.
But I'm seeing a baboon.
It's just this giant slug and they're screaming. All screaming. He's like, ah! I thought it was so funny that this giant slug is behind Chewbacca and Poe going, ah! yes, they're all like, dude, I was laughing so hard, and I was like, I believe it because it's Star Wars.
Right.
What I don't believe is someone with pink hair and a really shitty frumpy dress. All right,
She didn't hit for me. I admit that.
All right, we'll keep moving.
So a baboon builds his helmet, and all of a sudden he becomes.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah.
In that scene, I thought the helmet looked cool. After that, when they brought it to the rest of the movie,
Yeah.
I didn't think it looked as good.
And then they go to Endor.
All right.
Right? Okay, no, sorry, but her parents.
So they go to Endor.
Oh, do you find out? Oh, sorry. It says the dagger and has vision of her parents being killed with it. Kylo informs her that she is Palpatine's granddaughter. This is another plot point that they had to chop up from The Last Jedi, whereas he goes, "I lied. You are whatever," and you're like, okay, okay. Like it's one thing to say like when Obi-Wan Kenobi goes, in a way, I said I knew your father. Like it's a bit vague. But this one was straight up being like, no, we're just killing the last plot point of the last film. Yes, you are someone important. You are Palpatine's granddaughter.
So again,
and I knew that the whole time.
In my mind, when I looked at The Last Jedi in its own form, the way it was supposed to be, I thought it was a fine film. What Abrams did in this movie, right, The Rise of Skywalker, was really, you're right, tear a lot of those plot points down.
Because you had to.
Because he had to progress his own
you had to
agenda.
progress, not even his agenda, the story.
Well, sure, but
you have a third
that's his agenda,
film.
though, is to put the story
yeah,
together.
well, it could have been a different director. They would have done the same thing.
They needed to progress it.
You could have brought in Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott would have done the same thing.
I think the unintended consequence of Johnson running it was that he really put them into a box that they had to try to build themselves out of.
Yep.
Again, I don't mind that he tried to build it into his own box. I respect that.
Yep.
It's just that he did it to a point where it made it really hard for anybody to move forward.
Yep. No, I agree. And
within the canon.
If it was a standalone film, if they gave him a standalone film, he probably would have been fine.
Nope. I'm 100% flexible on changing my viewpoint on how all that works. So they go ahead and they say, okay,
you are the big plot point. You're a Palpatine. By the way,
and by the way, Leia knew the whole time.
Did she really?
That's what he said. He goes, well, somebody in the movie goes, well, Luke did. Luke says, well, Leia knew the whole time. She just didn't want to tell you.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Because Leia said before her last scene with Rey was, "Don't be afraid of who you are."
Okay, that's vague.
Leia said that.
Yeah.
And then Luke said, "Well, Leia knew the whole time that you were a Palpatine. I also knew that you were a Palpatine. The Force essentially told me.
Yeah.
But you kind of had to figure out who you were on your own, despite the fact that everybody's telling you who you are. So you never really did figure it out on your own because we led you to believe in the last film that you were nobody."
Yeah.
So it's this.
Are you talking about when they were back on that island again? Is that when Luke Skywalker tells her?
Yeah, because Luke was talking to her and he said like Leia knew.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of dropped.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I do love the aspect that she's a Palpatine. I do love that. That took me completely by surprise.
Yeah.
And I did love that because that is the ultimate test of a character. You are the genealogy of not even Darth Vader. You are the genealogy of Palpatine, who was the worse than Vader, because Vader was at least conflicted. Yep. Palpatine was not. And not only that, you are stronger than Vader. You're stronger than anybody else.
You're stronger than Kylo.
And Kylo Ren, and you don't know where to go from there.
Right.
And then your parents died trying to save you.
Yep.
This whole thing, which I loved, all those beats, like that really developed her, or not developed, but that really established her. It added so much depth to her character. And when they revealed that, I was like, God damn, that was good. Like, I'm happy they brought about Palpatine on an aspect because of that too. I honestly think that those two, it almost makes the film work. Like, you have two prongs, one without the other, one with one prong without the other doesn't work, but now with both prongs they work. So if you would have said she wasn't one, I would have hated Palpatine. If you said she was a Palpatine and there was no Palpatine in the film, I don't feel like that would have been there would be nothing to gain almost.
Because you'd have to go back and remember who Palpatine was.
Exactly. Yeah, but now you have this giant force of Palpatine existing still, because and then you have her who is stronger than Luke Skywalker, stronger than Anakin, and she's conflict, and now they're meeting. Like, I love that. That was a solid. I agree. I will jump on board with that one all day because I was shocked. I was literally like, "What?" Like, me and we were sitting in the theater going, "Wow, that's cool." There is now in a film, there's now stakes. There's now a giant stake in all this. Forget the
What do we do
Wayfinder.
if?
Forget Palpatine as a bad guy. There's a stake of your main character. Is she going bad? Is she going good? How is this going to play out? Where do we go from here? So that was good. What was the other thing?
So eventually, let's talk about we had one.
They get to Endor.
Well, we had one face off in the film, or early in the film, when we talked about the whole quicksand scene. You had Kylo and Rey faced off. Their next big face off is she's on one of the Death Destroyers. They're trying to get Chewbacca back, and she drops Darth Vader's helmet through through the Force. She drops it right in front, and then Kylo knows exactly where she is.
Yeah.
I really like that Johnson set up the whole idea of Force transfer. And where you can transfer things through the Force, and one of the things that happened.
Did they though? I thought it was just projection. I thought it was projection.
Transfer, projection, whatever you want to call it.
But
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's they were physically holding on to things. And, and later on in this movie, that ends up becoming a focal point. But there was dice that were Force transferred.
Yeah.
There was the mask that was in the first film. That was in.
That
the very
was
first one. The dice.
The dice was in Last Jedi, wasn't it?
I think the dice was from.
Didn't it Force
Force Awakens? I could be wrong on that, but there was some kind of.
There was dice, but I think they Force transferred dice maybe in Last Jedi.
For the people that don't know, dice would have been.
It was in the Millennium Falcon.
Solo's dice.
Yeah.
But I believe that was Force transferred in Force Awakens.
Was it? Okay.
I believe that. So then we know that in this last film, Return of the Jedi, there was Force transfer taking place, and in this film, there's Force transfer taking place. So you get a lot of Force transfer, you get a lot of Force healing, and then you get to see Force ghosts, which are just badass and awesome.
Yeah.
But we'll get there in a few minutes. So you see a lot of these things that they're starting to do, and what I really liked about the fact that they really kept Darth Vader a central figure. And because Kylo Ren is the grandson of Darth Vader, it keeps the dark side in. It keeps him in the front mirror, or I'm sorry, in the forward vision, as opposed to just always in the background. You're directly reminded why Darth Vader is so important to the entire franchise.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yep.
So
such an influence,
So fast forward a few scenes. Fast forward a few things.
So this is where they go to where the old Death Star basically blew up. They're on an Endor moon or something.
So here's the issue that I have with this whole thing.
They run into the X-Storm. They run into an X-Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
She's got to navigate this damn boat into the Death Star, or the fallen apart Death Star, and then she has a fight with. This is where they kind of reveal her split of her Palpatine, and shows her as a Sith.
I want to stand back though to the dagger scene. So I didn't realize this until after. Again, I'm a moviegoer who goes in two ways. I accept it the way it's supposed to be, and then I go to YouTube.
Yeah.
So one of the YouTube videos that I watched very astutely pointed out the dagger just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Because you have this dagger which is older than the Death Star.
Yeah.
Right?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
But the dagger knew the exact position
of a crashed Death Star.
That the crashed Death Star would be.
Yeah.
So that if you stood in the exact point, which could have been completely random.
Yeah,
Rey could take the little what the fuck.
Yeah, it was like a compass looking
thing. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And then you have to hold it directly to the Death Star and say,
the fallen pieces perfectly.
That exactly matches. Oh, that's where it's got to.
Yep.
It didn't make any sense.
Nope.
And they literally just put this piece in there just to continue to move it along so she could get onto the Death Star and know where to go.
Yeah.
And it's just. This is where they needed the Bible, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be able to say, you know what?
Well, this is where they should have planned out the series. I agree with you. This is where there should have been front to back, which is shocking that they didn't do that.
Anyway,
it is. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's just one of those things you have to understand is a plot device to move it forward. And sometimes in filmmaking you just got to accept the plot device.
Exactly.
For the plot device.
Oh, and the other thing too, you accept the fact that you made a movie. The fact that you finished the product.
It's now canon.
It's now canon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Establish the fact that this is still a film, and people are like, "Oh my god, this and that." It's just to complete a movie is such a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Me as a wannabe filmmaker, semi filmmaker, it is I've never even done a feature, and it's horrifying when you're at a level of commercial level, when you finally reach that, and you're like, "This will be fine," and you're like, "Jesus Christ, it's just as bad as if you're doing it at home with your friends." You're playing it by I've heard it's you think that the professionalism is better. It's not. Everybody's it's just as much of a shit show as you
It's
at home
just a
with your
different level of
friends.
shit show,
it's
right?
just a different level. There's
More
just
money,
so much
more
more
problems.
money. Yeah, exactly.
You have problems when you have very little money. You have problems when you have a lot of money.
Exactly. So then they run into these ex-stormtroopers that ride horses.
Well,
and then they have the fight. Her and Kylo Ren have this fight.
okay, so after they come out of the Death Star,
Yep, they're in the Death Star.
they have this fight outside, which is in the posters.
Looks cool. I think
It
it's
looks
pretty cool.
awesome.
Looks
There's
cool.
this storming ocean behind them.
Yep.
On some random planet.
Yep.
The Death Star's in the background, and
Yep.
they're fighting.
Yep.
One of the issues I have here, again, is Luke said when Rey goes back to the island to just quit,
Yeah.
which bothered me. Luke essentially says to her, well, you know, Leia foresaw at the end of her story the death of her son, which really kind of bothered me because...
Wait, they said that? Man, I really got to
movie,
rewatch this film. I got to rewatch it again.
Yeah,
I
because
didn't
Luke
catch that.
says, well, Leia foresaw at the end of her story the death of her son.
But then
Well-
is this the point where she'd healed him, though? They had the fight. So they fight each other. So they're doing the lightsaber fight, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
She stabs him.
She stabs him with a lightsaber.
He's about to die.
She force
She
heals
force
him.
heals him.
She then, I believe, goes to put herself into confinement.
Yeah, at
Or
the
was it-
old Jedi temple.
That was after, right?
That
was
was
the scene after?
Yeah, scene after.
So then Luke essentially comes out and says, Leia
Oh, he was-
foresaw.
This is another.
And I'm thinking to myself, but the son never died.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if Leia could foresee the death of her son,
Yeah.
then literally 10 seconds later,
Yeah,
why couldn't she see that Rey was going to force heal her?
Yeah, exactly.
Because Leia gave herself up,
Yeah.
literally, so that Rey could kill her son.
Yeah.
So it completely
yeah.
marginalizes
Yeah.
the entire character of Leia Organa.
Yeah.
It literally made her completely
Yeah.
a waste
Well,
of
let's
a
talk
death.
about that scene then on the actual back on the island, because here's another thing that they threw back into Bryan Johnson's film is she throws the lightsaber. Guess who catches it?
Luke.
Force Ghost Luke. Why? To redeem the fact that so many fans were upset that when she gave him a lightsaber, he threw it over his shoulder and said, fuck it. Like, this giant established piece of item within the series is just pissed away. And which I agree with the fans. It should have never been pissed away like that. It was, even when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of a weird
That
character
was his
move.
lightsaber.
That was your lightsaber. This has been building up to get back to you this entire film, and then the second film they go, fuck it, doesn't matter.
He chucks it behind him.
Yeah.
I-
So
that felt wrong.
It did felt
in
it
the
felt
moment.
wrong. Like
It felt
that
wrong.
when I watched, I'm like, okay, maybe this will go somewhere, but it did feel wrong. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that feels wrong. Maybe they'll justify it. They never justified it. But again, in this film though, she throws it. He goes, he just grabs it, and then they have a conversation where she goes, well, I thought you said this, and he goes, I was wrong. By the way, they burn the Jedi Temple old scripts. She has them. She has all of the books.
But I did like that.
Yeah, building the
Personally
tree.
speaking, because I really believed in that moment when
Yeah.
Yoda and Luke, again in The Last Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and Yoda was saying, hey,
Yeah.
they're just scripts.
Yeah, and I agree with that too.
Whatever, get rid of the
Yeah.
tree, get
Yeah.
rid of the temple.
I get it, but it's
I
also like
loved that Rey brought them back.
I did. I like that she brought them back too. That she kept them because part of me was like, look, you can say
Luke and Yoda had no idea she stole them.
Yeah,
I thought that was a nice
that was cool.
touch.
It was a touch. Well, also too, I think fans were upset. It was like that'd be like taking like, look, is whether or not how religious you are, or whatever. That's like taking like the Book of Kells, which is in Ireland. I think it's a religious text or whatever, and saying, we don't need them. Fucking burn them. And by the way, not only
We're a new society.
not only could we save them and like just walk in and grab them, you're saying, nah, just let them burn. You know why? You know what? They're old. They're just old.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why are you so sad
We
about?
have a new form of Jedi
Then
now.
why are you so sad about the Book of Alexandria burning? Like, how much history did we lose? It's still history. Like, you don't piss on it. It's like saying, you know those family photos? Fuck them. Just let them burn. We don't need them. We have
I'll create a new
today.
family.
I'll create it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. Like, that's that whole thing of that. Although I did like the fact that he brought back Yoda in that film, but
That was great.
I thought that was awesome. But anyway, so I'm going
That was
back.
the last time that we got to see Yoda in the Skywalker
Yeah,
series.
exactly. You can hear his voice in Rise of Skywalker.
Well, sure.
But that's it. Yeah.
You hear it in The Force Awakens
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So,
When Rey is having her first trip out sequence in The Force Awakens, you hear Yoda in the background.
oh, you
just
really?
Very briefly.
Oh, well.
Again, subtitles are incredible because it says Yoda.
Yoda. Oh,
So
okay.
you know.
That's cool.
Just in case you miss something.
All right. Well, so yeah, so then they go back to that, and then they establish all this extra shit, and you can kind of tell Mark Hamill is so much happier in this like film, like the way that even if he's a Force ghost, they was like you could tell he's like feels like he's righting whatever character wrong was done to him, and it just felt that way. Maybe
So-
I'm wrong. It's like I have to rewatch the film again to like see what they said because apparently I'm missing some stuff.
I wrote down some things last night after I got home. And I'm going to kind of run through this list here, not to sidetrack us from
No, go for it. Yeah.
where we are, but I think one of them had to do with Yoda or with Skywalker. So a few of these things we've already talked about. So I'm going to read this, and then we can kind of go through. By and large, Ethan, I thought the pacing of the film was fine.
Well, I feel a little bit rushed, but I understood that.
I thought the pacing was good given what they were trying to take
Exactly.
care of.
Yeah. Everybody's giving the film the benefit of the doubt.
I thought the audio was good for the most part. And the way I judge that is how many words did I miss?
Yeah.
This wasn't Bane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This wasn't Act 3 of Batman.
Yeah.
I honestly think, and me getting off subject here, I think that Bane is going to be a much better character for me to watch when I have subtitles on.
Yeah, maybe.
And I'm actually probably going to really like him.
Yeah, maybe
after subtitles are turned on.
Yeah.
Quick shout out for subtitles. Ethan, you and I have talked about this. We
I
watch
love
all movies with subtitles.
Because I don't want to miss anything.
Because you do miss a lot
You do.
without the subtitles, and you get to see exactly what the writing is. You have a better understanding for how it was formatted.
Yep.
And you have a better understanding for when each character is speaking. So,
Yeah.
hearing loss or not, if you're a subtitle person, or if you're not, turn them on.
Yep.
Story arcs. I thought for the most part, this film wrapped up story arcs pretty well.
They had to.
Wouldn't you
yeah.
agree?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
They did well.
They took care of it.
It did what they had to do. Yeah.
Okay, so here's one that I want to touch on real quick. And again, we'll come back to the final scenes
Yep.
in a couple minutes, but Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
We have to go here.
Yeah.
Because I knew that Carrie Fisher had died, just like everybody listening to this podcast did, and everybody watching the YouTube video, I had a really skeptical eye on every single Carrie Fisher scene.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, as a viewer, I was more relieved when she finally died.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I didn't need to watch something that I knew was a complete lie.
Yeah. Yep.
They took recycled footage
Yep.
from the old films. And if you go back and watch Rise of the Skywalker, you can explicitly see it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She delivers minimal lines
Yep.
each time she's on screen.
Yep.
I feel like they probably did the very best they could.
Yeah. You could
They
tell at one point it's
couldn't
not even her
just
body.
write her out.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were points where the editing would cut to just hands of Leia
Yep.
or just the back of Leia
Yep.
to do something or hand something off.
Yep.
And you knew you were being lied to
Yep.
because you know Carrie Fisher's dead, which isn't necessarily the fault of the film.
Yep.
But when they finally just killed her off, I felt more relieved than during each of her scenes because I was just like, man, these actors have to deal with this.
Yeah.
She's not there. And granted, there's green screen and all that kind of stuff, but like it's a different level when it's Carrie Fisher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And she's your quote unquote princess in the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, I thought they were just uncomfortable scenes.
Yeah.
And I didn't think they were delivered.
Well, you could tell too, like they weren't delivered well.
Right.
They CG'd her face, even if it was her, because even if they'd have to change the line, even if they shot the scene, because maybe it didn't work because they're rewriting. So
Right.
she's not even getting the lines right, even if they had shot some stuff already.
They were strange to watch.
Before she died.
They
So
were just
they
strange
were
to
because,
watch.
and then like it almost at one point didn't even seem like her at all anymore. It was just a face replacement. Like the body didn't seem the same in some shots, because they said they used recycled footage, but I'm pretty sure they just obviously did a body double and then they had the face put on. You know what I mean? Because there's a few times I'm like, that doesn't look like the Carrie Fisher, but like her physical body stature from like the first two films, and that you're seeing.
Yeah, actually, in
from like
The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So my wife and I kind of talked about this. Harrison Ford's old.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher's old.
Yeah.
and so is Mark Hamill.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could really see it though in Carrie Fisher's body.
Oh yeah.
The most in The Force Awakens.
Yep.
She looked small. She looked kind of hunched over a little bit.
Yeah.
In this movie, she looked like she was standing up straight.
They like thinned her out.
She was a little bit less stocky or husky than she was in Force Awakens.
Yeah, in Rise of Jedi.
And
Last Jedi.
I agree with you. It just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
All of her scenes to me felt very awkward.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate that because at the end of the day, they did the very best they could.
Yeah, yep.
But
it is what it is.
I struggled with it.
Yeah.
So if we go back to a couple, so I want to keep kind of going through my list here as we continue to evolve through here. So let's continue to just kind of go scene to scene here. Yeah. Fast forward, Rey kills Kylo Ren. She force heals him back to life. Kylo Ren virtually disappears from the screen the rest of the film until the last scene.
Well, no, he has that scene with Han Solo.
Okay,
that's a pretty big scene.
You want to go there?
Because
I forgot
he
about
turns
that.
to good.
I forgot about
he
that.
turns into a good guy.
I wrote that here.
That's a big scene.
So actually, I wrote that in my notes.
Yeah,
here.
that's a very big scene.
Han Solo, his return to me was one of the best scenes of the film.
Yeah.
Where what I loved about it, and it kind of gave me goosebumps. So I'm a big Harrison Ford fan.
Yeah, Harrison Ford's awesome.
I got to know Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. That's when I really fell in love with him. I probably then went back and really realized how much I appreciated him in Indiana Jones, although Crystal Skull was terrible.
Yeah.
When he came back and was talking to his son, or his son's vision of his dad.
Yeah, essentially.
Right, he's kind of tripping balls a little bit when he's standing out there because he realizes it's just him.
Yeah.
And his dad says, hey, son, you know what you got to do.
Yeah.
There's a moment where you really want Kylo Ren to put the lightsaber back in through his dad.
Yeah.
Because you want him to be like, just embrace the dark side and
Yeah.
just go from there. Really change the plot.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he predictably takes his lightsaber and throws it in the ocean, which it's kind of just didn't do justice to that lightsaber.
Yeah, it was a sweet lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He at least could have pulled it out and used it to fight, Palpatine in the future. But he takes it, he tosses it, he turns to the light. He gets what he needs. Rey ends up being wrong about kind of, sitting on the throne with him.
Yeah.
Because she said, you and I are both sitting on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know that Rey's vision isn't going to happen, is when he turns. Great scene. I honestly didn't want to read who was in the film until I saw the film.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Harrison was
No, I
making
didn't
a
either.
cameo.
That totally got me too. I didn't realize that he was going to be in it.
And it was so well done. It was honestly, to me, one of the
It's a
most
solid
impactful
Yep.
scenes in the film, because arguably Han Solo means more to Star Wars than Luke Skywalker.
Almost to a point. I agree with you. A lot of people identify with Han Solo, I think, a little
You've
bit
seen
more.
a Solo standalone film.
Yeah.
You haven't seen one for Luke.
Yeah.
Well,
it really wasn't.
Chewie is synonymous with Solo. And even
yeah.
you could even see it, granted, Chewie's death is cheap, but when he comes back to life and the guy on the Star Destroyer says, this Wookiee served with Han Solo. And he goes, roar, and he loses his shit because they're taking essentially Han Solo's name in vain.
Yeah.
I love that because there's reverence for the character.
Yeah.
There's maybe more reverence for Han Solo than there is for even Luke Skywalker.
I would say that, yeah.
Because he's a smuggler and he's kind of everybody's man. He's not the Jedi. And I think the rest of the universe identifies with Han more than they identify with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So let's kind of get toward one of the last scenes in the movie. One of the big issues that I have is...
Okay, so we go from there. Basically, so we could probably jump all the way to... Okay, one other thing, too, for Rose, the story of Rose. They definitely just so we can get this out of the way, that was one of the leftovers of the Rian Johnson film. They still have her as a character.
Pretty much.
But did you see how the Finn...
her out of the film.
She's like, hey, can I come with you? He goes, no, don't worry about it, buddy. And like pats her on the shoulder and then walks away. I mean, she was a massive part of Last Jedi, and she comes... a minimal B character almost out of you have to, because she was such a big character in the second film that they literally they were like forced to keep her in and some minimal sight. But you see how, and it's not the actress's fault. That's not her fault.
No,
That's just how it was written for her character. And so, she's just like, hey, I got this idea, blah, 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 blah. And then that's it. They totally downplay her character. She has a few scenes and then that's it. Like, she's gone. All right. So that's another, to me, that's another throwing shade at Last Jedi. Now, we go from there to there. She then Rey starts heading over to. She finds the Wayfinder, or they get the Wayfinder. They already found it. They now.
Okay, we have to back up.
Yeah.
We bring in not Carl Weathers, but instead we bring in.
Oh God,
what's his
Mando.
face? Mando.
We should have brought this up way longer.
Yeah.
Mando. Yeah.
So Mando comes in the film way earlier. I got to be honest with you. I'm not with the fanboys on this.
No, I'm not either.
I think you and I are going to agree on this point.
We're not Lando. No, because I don't think Lando is a big enough character to bring back.
I didn't think Lando hit at all.
No, not at all. Well, the actor, dude. Like, somebody brought this up on a review I watched like 2 days ago. He is not doing well. Like, he walks with a cane. He can't walk on his own. So apparently in some of the scenes that you see him, it's either body double or he's sitting down, and he barely delivers his line. He's like, somebody brought up, he's cackling like an old senile man. He kind of is. Like, you're kind of like, he's not delivering much of a range of whatever, and you're kind of like, oh man, like this is kind of, you had to bring him back. Like, it was very.
Who is Carl Weathers' character again?
He's a Mandalorian.
Right.
The Lando is played by Billy D. Williams.
Right, that's Lando. But who's the guy in the Mandalorian? That's Carl Weathers.
That's Carl Weathers.
What's the name of his character?
Oh, I don't know the name of his character.
Jesus, here we are having a Star Wars episode and we're forgetting.
I did, yeah,
But,
yeah.
Billy D. Williams, Lando. So Lando comes in during one of the earlier scenes in the film, kind of during the the quicksand scene, and I just kind of go, again. I said this, it didn't hit for me. I felt like I understood what they were trying to do. What I liked, if we're going to say something nice, is that there was reverence for what he did in the earlier films.
Yeah.
They recognized him as a Jedi general.
Yep.
Instantly, everybody knew who he was, so you can tell he's being taught about.
Yeah, he at least
in
is
the
in
lore
legend
and the canon, and they've seen his photo and they know what he looks like.
Yeah.
But he even kind of just blew it off like something he did in the past, and he didn't even have like reverence for himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I think the biggest part for me, so to go forward into the film closer to where we are now, they say, all right, we're going to go as the Resistance, and we're going to try to fight this final order, as they call it in the film. Right?
Yeah.
Because you had the First Order, and now it's called the Final Order because it's the final film. Right? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to fight the Final Order.
All right, so we're moving on to when
we're getting toward that last scene where you got Finn ridiculously standing on the Death Destroyer outside.
Oh, when they raided or whatever. No,
so
wait.
you see the rebels getting ready. They're gonna fight. Yeah. And Poe says, you know what, you're gonna go with Chewie in the Falcon, and you're gonna go to all these other planets, and you're gonna go get whoever in the universe is gonna fight for the Resistance. And they show this montage. There's this montage of like people getting ready, and they show this montage of people hugging and high-fiving and like, go get them, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then you see Lando like getting in with Chewie, and they take off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be the big callback to the original films. He's supposed to be one of the central features. Lando was a badass back then.
Yeah.
Even then, I kind of thought he was a B character, but whatever.
But he played well though, because he was with the Cloud City towards the end of the Empire.
People loved him.
And then he was also the main pilot, whatever, during the Return of the Jedi. Like he was the one that delivered the blow.
He was big
to the Death Star.
Yeah, he was in the fight.
Yeah, he was in the fight. Yeah.
And then it was just kind of like, we're gonna put you over here.
Yeah.
In this movie, what I would have loved to see, and maybe to your point, he couldn't get a ton of screen time. He wasn't healthy, whatever. If you're going to show me a montage of all these rebel fighters getting ready, which was completely unnecessary in my opinion, why not show Chewie and him in just a couple of scenes going in and having a couple quick conversations with people on different planets and saying, hey, we're going to go do this. You're inevitably going to lose people. But come stand with us.
Yeah.
If he's this revered admiral that
Yeah.
people can recognize right away,
Mm-hmm.
the film could have made such a much bigger impact.
Yeah.
So again, this whole episode's a spoiler, but at the end, when the First Order, or the Last Order, I'm sorry, is about to just destroy everything and take over, this Federation of planets essentially shows up, right?
Yeah.
Ships from every planet and every reach of the universe show up. I have an issue with that because that means that in a very short time, the Millennium Falcon probably went to like 70 different planets.
Yeah.
But at least show me a couple of those conversations taking place so that
Yeah.
people can have reverence for this character that you're telling me they should all have reverence for.
Yeah.
Instead, it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, Chewie and Lando apparently just brought everybody back
Yeah.
and they were successful, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
It just it
Well, I
felt
think that's-
completely incomplete.
I think that comes to the issue of this is like, and I think this everybody is having the same issue, is that the film is 3 films or 2. It is 2 films at a minimum.
And maybe we're being
this is,
overcritical here.
and like again, this is something that this would have something that been established in the second film, regardless of Ryan Johnson's or whatever. If they would have had an outline of what was going on, I think a lot of these issues would have been addressed in the second film.
They could have brought it back.
Like maybe in the beginning of this film, Lando was introduced, and you were like, and then you see him the first 30 minutes talking to planets or so like, you gotta go, we need more people, because by the end of the
And then they could have connected it at
and
the
then
end
they
of the
could have
film. Like,
exactly,
oh, what is
like,
he doing?
oh, at the beginning of the film Lando went off, at the end of the film he delivers, that. And again, but I think that's something that just wasn't established in The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi, they were like, oh, we need more people from around the outer, or from outer rims, that hopefully they'll come to us at the final battle. They never did, but then they're like, this is the last of the resistance, and you were sitting there and there's 40 people and you're like, what? So you're talking about my whole universe of Star Wars is now condensed down to 40 people on the Millennium Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
You stand no chance against the First Order. You should be crushed. Like, there's no reason why this now should work. And that's another criticism of Last Jedi I have. But regardless,
how poorly the Death Destroyers could aim.
yeah, and so anyway, so let's get back to the last scenes of the Rise of Skywalker. We have the fight now. You have, again, 1,000 Star Destroyers. I want to say if there was 100 or 150, 205, it would make me feel better. It's kind of ridiculous they have all these people. I think there's some legit criticism. I don't want to bring up logic in the Star Wars universe, but like I said, Star Wars or any other films, there are rules set within that universe that they should be somewhat adhered to. I get it. They've been building starships for 40 years. It's so like, well, if they've been doing that, then why didn't they bail out the First Order in the first film of Force Awakens? Why didn't they just destroy the whole universe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before, the Resistance is being an issue? So it's just kind of like, whatever, but it is what it is. Visually look cool, but then at the same time, you're like, Jesus, that's so
cool.
much. At the same time, though, you're like, the Resistance can't blow up 1,000 of ships, and then they show up, and then, okay, so then they do that horse run battle.
So dumb. All right. So,
By the way, you could see that coming from, when they show it in the trailer, and people were pissed that it was in the trailer. They're like, are you fucking serious? And then, that right away, that was like one of the biggest criticisms before the movie even came out, was the fact that there's these horse things running on a Star Destroyer. And then you see the film, and it's almost as ridiculous.
The problem is
Yeah.
that Star Destroyers
Yeah.
can scan anything. It seems like
Yeah.
they can just take a look at anything.
Life forms. You would have found out they're
half
like,
a million miles away and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, this thing is coming toward us," but they
Yeah.
can't pick up a horse
Yeah.
running on the outside of the destroyer.
Yeah.
Not only that, but am I just supposed to? I'm actually glad that you went here because this is one of my biggest issues.
what's a giant scene in the film?
This is one of my biggest issues. Are we just to assume then that there's like a gravity field that just pulls everybody down to the surface of a Death Destroyer?
You mean, the Star Destroyer, you're saying?
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Star Destroyer.
Well, they're on the planet's atmosphere still, though. So
I don't
that's-
care.
Yeah.
They're in outer space.
Yeah.
Breathing
Yeah.
without helmets.
Well, they were still within the planet's atmosphere that they could breathe and have
But they're
gravity.
still in outer space.
Yeah.
They're not like inside the atmosphere.
No,
of
they
the
were.
planet.
They were in the atmosphere of the planet.
It didn't look like it. So
Oh,
I
okay.
guess for me,
Oh,
that's-
so like you thought they were out in outer space? Oh, dude, that would make it so much worse.
because then you go on to
That would
see
make it
these
so much
you go on
worse.
to see these horses running, and then you go on when Finn makes his great escape. You see him jump off a Star Destroyer
I know the Millennium Falcon.
onto the Millennium Falcon, and then the Millennium Falcon starts, maybe even worse, shooting away, and
Yeah.
there's just Finn standing there looking around like,
Oh,
we're leaving.
I
And
saw-
he's on top of the Millennium.
Yeah, not even hanging
I
on.
don't care.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
dead, bro.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gone.
Yeah,
To me, like, that was one of the biggest egregious, like,
yeah.
so on YouTube, somebody said something to me that this whole horse scene, and then to me the end where you know
Yeah.
Finn jumps on the Millennium Falcon in the Mandalorian, especially with the Bill Burr episode,
Yeah.
you're able to see the Star Wars universe and people who like handle it, Kathleen Kennedy included. They can find creative ways to get into a ship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How the fuck did they think it was a good idea to
was a
bring
good idea.
horses onto the outside of a
Yeah.
a Star Destroyer?
They're gonna charge with the horses, and you're just like, oh my god.
Like, why can't you give me some kind of like semi-believable
Yeah.
way to get into there without having to bring horses on? How did they transport the horses? Why do you think that the horses are going to stand up against stormtroopers who have laser
Jetpacks
guns and
and-
jetpacks? Yeah,
yeah.
like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was just so stupid.
Yeah, it was a bit rough.
And then you had the Asian gal. What's her name again?
Oh, Rose.
Rose, who's just like Finn, and they tried to bring it back from the
And it just-
Johnson film.
By the way,
like,
they thought you were gonna hook up with that ex stormtrooper chick too.
oh sure,
So they
yeah,
were like
yeah.
setting that up,
And
so
that
that's
was a
almost
problem.
like that's almost another thing that never was like because you could see that
Finn
tension a
turns
little
into
bit.
like a playboy.
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's
he's like, who's he
who's
going
with?
after?
Is he after Rose? Is he
Yeah,
after the
after-
other deserter?
Is he after
from
Rey?
Yeah, is he
yeah.
after Rey? Like, and they changed Finn's hair in this film too.
Did they really?
Yeah, Finn used to have like the straight up flat top, and now he's got like some of the waves going on
Oh,
through
yeah.
the hair. I'm like, man, Finn looks different. Oh, that's right, they changed his hair for the film.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they completely wanted to like edge him up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And they made him like a total ladies' man, which is fine.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you never really get the payoff because
No.
then there's some people that think that him and Poe have something, which is just weird.
That is such a far stretch. That's insane.
so
but-
last let's get to last act here.
Yeah, last act. Okay, so that happens.
In the background.
in the background of the final fight with Palpatine, Rey, and Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren makes light work of Knights of Ren once he gets
By
a
the way,
lightsaber.
why even bring Knights of Ren into this universe? At
Well,
this
because they were
point?
established in Force Awakens. That's why. And he also
They
said
weren't
that
shown in Force Awakens.
Yeah, they were.
They
they were shown.
when?
In one of the flashbacks they were shown in Force Awakens. That was because that was a big thing, and because in Last Jedi they say Luke Skywalker says him and
The
a few
Knights.
other people took down the Jedi Temple.
So they alluded to them.
And so but the thing is, they never showed them in Last Jedi. Like again, another thing that was kind of pushed to the side because that was like kind of a plot detail in the first. Because there's like people surrounding Ren or Kylo Ren in Force Awakens, and everybody's like, oh shit, who are these other 6 people? And then they again forget about it in the Last Jedi, and now they brought it back for Rise of Skywalker. Again, something
just
that they're
kind
trying
of-
to like reestablish. Like, hey, remember these people that you thought you were gonna see? It's like they were still trying to confirm plot lines that were established in the first.
I
film.
just wish that maybe they would just left the Knights of Ren out.
Yeah,
Because
they
they
could
did
have,
them
yeah.
such a disservice in this film.
Yeah, I think
They
they
just
should've
made
done
him
more
look
of them,
like stupid mercenaries who were just kind of like following around Kylo.
yeah.
And then they went onto that planet that they eventually just blew up. And
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were just doing raids,
Yeah.
like, pounding doors down. They could have took Knights of Ren and turned it into like its own 2-part films.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
because Kylo Ren wasn't really following anybody. Like the Knights of Ren were their own established order.
Well, I thought Kylo Ren were following Knights of Ren.
Well, the Knights of Ren, the
Is
way
Ren,
I would
Kylo
understand
Ren,
it
yeah.
would be the Knights of Ren would have been like some established group that
Yeah.
Kylo then essentially makes his own or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
They could have done so much more.
They could have done
Instead,
that,
They just
yeah.
made him kind of just like
Again,
background
first
pieces.
film was establishing for that, and then second film.
But I
nothing
guess it was so
happens.
unestablished that I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
And that's maybe the problem is how many casual people or fans are going to realize that Knights
Yeah.
of Ren were
That's
established.
true. That's true.
So,
But yeah, so
anyway.
Knights of Ren, they get quick work of right when Chi Force drops the fucking lightsaber to him.
Cool scene.
Cool
little bit of
scene.
Force drop.
And that whole thing with Palpatine and like you see all those people, all the Sith. Like I love that. And there's a lot of theories on that. Are those
Dead Sith.
If those dead Sith,
Yep.
are they essence? Are they actually just real people? Are they followers? Whatever it was cool. Like I loved the whole Colosseum aspect, like that, the chair, the whole gamut. Like it was
It
cool.
felt a little bit weird for me though that you've got this Colosseum of Sith.
Yeah.
The most badass fighters of all of the Empire, or the First Order, or the Last Order.
Yep.
Who are just sitting in a Colosseum watching a ceremony.
Yeah.
Knowing that there is an absolute war going on above their heads.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to get rid of the Rebel Force.
Yeah. Send out the Sith.
Just take half of that audience and just throw them up there.
Exactly, yeah.
Like.
Yep. Or here's the kicker, too. Like, you built 1,000 warships. Where's the million starfighters TIE fighters there's only a few TIE fighters.
Just swarmed.
You would have had if you think of the ratio of how many TIE fighters are per Star Destroyer, you could have had like a million TIE fighters.
Let's say 500 per ship.
500, yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Not even that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
50,000 TIE fighters. So you kind of do the math on that. And it's like, whatever. But the whole scene was pretty cool, and it also was pretty graphic too when they start like killing him, like his like hands start deteriorating. Dude, that was pretty rough. It was cool. It was awesome. I loved it.
It was a cool scene. For me in that moment when they start to pull apart, where Palpatine's head starts to kind of pull apart.
Yeah.
Visually, I felt like it could have been done better.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just really. I don't know. I didn't feel like it looked all that convincing to me.
Yeah.
It looked very fake.
Yeah.
And I know that CGI has come so far now that you have like Transformer films with running robots.
Yeah.
Cars that are now looks real.
Yeah, it looks real. Yeah.
For me, when Palpatine's face started coming apart, I felt like it was just really bad CGI.
Oh, okay. I'd have to watch it again. I thought it was good, but
it was a cool concept. It was finally seeing the dead dying again.
Yeah. Well, it was cool too. I liked how they had him in that chair that was like from the ceiling. Like you could tell it's like 300 feet.
Yeah. But I had one issue with
I loved that. I thought that was so cool.
The only issue I had with that whole scene is Palpatine essentially realizes that Rey isn't going to turn and kill him.
Yeah. And so he like takes the life out of him.
So there's a scene where he's sitting there in his little contraption.
Yeah.
And as the fight starts, you just see him like pull back. And it's a minor thing. You'll have to watch the film. You'll know it when you see it next. But he's sitting here like this, and as the fight commences, he just swoops back into the background.
Yeah.
And it just looks like one of those like just set up like boss fights from like a Street Fighter film where you're like looking at like the main guy who you want to take down and just fades off into the background, and then his little minions come in and fight, because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
The Knights of Ren or whoever showed up and started fighting her.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like faded off into the background until he eventually came out and sucked the life souls out.
Yeah.
It's just like,
and then makes himself whole.
Like,
so
why
that's
did
another
he just
thing too.
throw the lightsaber, knock down the contraption, and kill him?
Yeah. It's there's a lot of stuff with that. And then too, once she dies, Ben Solo comes back, puts life into her.
Somehow lived through that.
And
which
then
was expected.
Yeah. And then you're like, and they do it for the third time. They kiss.
They
She's
finally
alive.
kiss.
Then he dies, and you're like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, what's going on?
I wanted to see them both honestly sit on the throne.
Yeah.
As a Palpatine and a Skywalker together.
That would have been cool.
To me, that would have ended that would have been like the best.
Yeah.
Way to end all of it.
Yeah.
The problem with that, though, is it stops you from setting up any future film.
Yeah.
Because the Palpatine, unless you go completely away from the Palpatines.
Yeah.
And you create a different villain. If they would have put them both on, because she said, I saw sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Ruling the Last Order.
Yeah.
Maybe she saw them sitting on the throne, not realizing that they were ruling peacefully.
Yeah.
I felt like the fact that they had to kill off Adam Driver, Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
I get that they did it because at the end of the day, so I wrote this down in my notes here. The Rise of the Skywalker. Two metaphorical meanings, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren decides to rise up and become who he is, which is a Skywalker / Solo.
Yep.
Which is, I think, awesome.
Super cool.
It actually gave me goosebumps when I kind of realized what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's like really fanboy and kind of cheesy, but it's the moment where you realize you're actually invested in the characters, despite how critical we're being right now.
I was, No,
I was invested. And
I was
the film
invested
did a
in
good
the
job
film.
of that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was like, okay, the Rise of the Skywalker. Adam Driver, Kylo Ren decides that he's going to actually rise up and be who he's supposed to be because his dad said, you're going to do the right thing. You might have killed me, but here you go.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. The rise of the next Skywalker is Rey.
Yeah.
Because she decides to make herself a Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which my wife had a problem with.
Yeah.
So we'll get there in just a second.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I believe the rise of Skywalker happens in 2 phases.
Yeah, yeah.
It happens with Kylo and it happens with Rey.
Yep.
So we'll get to the final scene here in just a second. But go. I mean,
yeah, and that's the thing too is I loved again that whole aspect. Like, so that's what the inconsistency of these films. From Last Jedi to this, and this is where it does a disservice because that they didn't plan it out, regardless of Rian Johnson, whoever basically Disney screwed up, did not plan these films out. They just didn't because they're so inconsistent within those 2 films that you're like, what the hell is going on? Is that I love that aspect that they were brought together, and I wanted more of that, but I wanted more on the front end. It would have made, if you would have been saying, well, they won't they, for a film and a half, you know what I mean? If they started doing that from the second film right out the gate, which they kind of started establishing, but there was more of like, let's partner up opposed to like a love aspect, because at the end of the film, they make it a love aspect. It's not a partnership. It's a love aspect, which is not what's established in Last Jedi. Last Jedi is come with me. We can like rule the galaxy together, be like pretty dope, opposed to like we're just hanging out, opposed to now she's like in love with Solo now. Like, it felt like she was the one initiating the whole like I'm in love with you. Would you agree though
that in the Last Jedi there was this underlying, you kind of had a knowledge, or you could see the underlying appreciation that both of them had for each other?
They did, but it wasn't anything on the aspect of like lovers. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't a romantic thing. It was more like let's help each other out. And it didn't feel to me like it was a romantic aspect.
It didn't feel out of place for me though when they kissed.
No, exactly. Because I think by the end,
because I felt like there was an underlying element to
this.
And
like I bought it, so like I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But also at the same time, again though, then everything came back to me like, well, what's up with Finn? What's up with these other storylines that are no longer going to be established? So then after that, and then he dies, and you're like, well, shit. Like honestly, it shows Adam Driver as an actor from the scene of him talking to Han Solo to the end. That was like, he was awesome. Like it was like great character arc. It was a great as an actor. Like he delivered on that, like the emotional side. Like it was really good, and you believe that like he had turned good. It wasn't like some B actor being like, oh, I'm a good guy now. Like you really believed what had happened, and I think that's what helped make believe that Rey and Ben Solo kind of could hook up. Like I feel like it's the actor, or at least Adam Driver, really helped sell that, and not so much Daisy Ridley, but almost Adam Driver. Like it really kind of helped me buy that emotion, that they were gonna hook up basically and be romantic. But then he dies, so then you're like, all right, well, there it is. He dies, and that's the end of it. And then they go back to their home planet, or they go back to the planet, and now we can discuss this, what you've been wanting to talk about for the entire thing.
So he dies. He effectively turns into
a good guy. He doesn't even do space ghost stuff because
he mean Force Ghost.
Force Ghost, because he's not even in the end as a Force Ghost. He's just. I thought they were going to turn him into a Force Ghost.
I guess one of the issues that I had was at the last second he disappears when he dies.
Yeah.
His body literally goes away from his clothing.
Just like Obi-Wan Kenobi did, Yoda.
Right.
Yoda did
Which
the same
means
thing.
that the Jedi Masters took him back
Yeah.
the way they took Anakin back.
Yep.
They said, hey, Anakin, we fucked up.
Yeah.
You're going to come to the good side now
Yep.
permanently. Hey, Kylo, you're going to come to the good side permanently.
Yep.
The question that I have, and I think that, maybe unfair, is just, is his dad there too?
Yeah.
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 Because his dad wasn't really a Jedi.
Yeah.
But it would really piss me off if he wasn't. I quickly want to hit on Adam Driver before we get to the last scene. A couple things I didn't realize about Adam Driver. He's been in a lot of really big movies. One of them being, I'm kind of looking it up right here as we go, Lincoln.
Yep.
He was in Lincoln in 2012.
Not a lot. He wasn't a big part though.
But he was in it. He was in a movie called The F Word, which I remember hearing about. I'm not super sure what it is. I believe he was in an HBO series. I can't exactly remember.
Yeah,
what
he was
it
in
is.
Girls or something like that.
Girls. I think it was Girls.
That was his big launch.
That was his big one, and I remember him feeling like a totally weird character. But I remember feeling like, and I don't know much about the series, but I saw a couple episodes. I remember him really like standing out.
Yeah.
He's done voice work in one episode of The Simpsons. He was obviously in The Force Awakens. Girls is right here.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it on IMDb. Last Jedi, Bob's Burgers. He did an episode there. The Black Klansman, which just recently came out.
That was good.
Adam Driver was in.
Yep.
So then he's got a couple things that are still coming.
Yeah.
But Adam Driver is a former Marine.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, one thing that I just heard.
He's a Mortarman.
Really?
Yeah, he got injured. He was an 03.
Okay.
Oh, God, Mortarman are 03, not 31s. They're not 52s. Salmon's 51. Not 21s. That's Recon. God damn it. I can't believe I'm forgetting this right now. Anyways, he's a Mortarman. And he joined in like 2003 or 4. And he was in a biking accident. So he never deployed. So they were about to deploy to Iraq. And he was in a downhill biking accident, cross-country biking. And like fucked up his back and shit, like horrible accident. And then they end up medically retiring him from the Marine Corps.
Well, the guy is absolutely stacked still today.
Yeah.
You saw that in The Last Jedi when the shirt was off. And he looked just jacked.
Yeah.
And not overly jacked, but like to the point where you could tell the guy was in good shape.
Yeah.
He was just recently doing Fresh Air with Terry Gross. I'm not sure if you're familiar at all with that. NPR has a show called Fresh Air.
Yeah.
She's arguably one of the greatest interviewers of public radio history.
Yeah.
Adam Driver has a phobia.
Yeah, I heard
of
about
watching himself or hearing himself act.
Yep.
Which to me is mind blowing because it means that he's not going to watch any of the Star Wars films. He hasn't probably seen anything that he's done because he can't bring himself to do it.
Yeah.
So Terry Gross, NPR, Fresh Air, awesome show. Although she's kind of an ignoramus sometimes, but I digress. She decided, against his will, to play an audio clip of him in a movie.
Yeah.
And in that moment,
he took off.
He got up and left.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And of course, people started just lambasting Adam Driver all over the internet, like calling him an egomaniac and, you're on a radio show. What do you expect? Blah blah. Fucking Adam Driver will never listen to this podcast. Yeah. Adam Driver will never get on our radar as far as him listening to the Nagel Bear podcast.
Just suddenly he's like, well, let's take a look at this.
But let me tell you right now, good for fucking you, Adam Driver, because as far as I'm concerned, you have every right to tell some radio personality that if you're not going to follow the rules of engagement, to go fuck themselves. Yeah. And Terry Gross, I'm sure, is a nice lady, but she's crossed the line a few times, according to other articles that I read online. But I just think it's absolutely fantastic that this guy has, for better or worse, this phobia, but he's not going to kind of allow it to define his filmmaking career. He actually did a TED Talks a couple of years ago, if you want to look it up, about this. It was not necessarily the phobia, but it was about his transition from the Marine Corps to acting.
Yeah, he went to Juilliard and everything. Yeah.
The guy sounds like an absolute incredible human being.
Yeah.
And if we could have him in this room to talk, it'd be
awesome.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would stop everything I'm doing in the world just to talk to Kylo
Well,
Ren.
just to see like from that transition, because it was kind of crazy because he's from my generation of Marines. So it's kind of be like me, like, well, maybe someday I'll get into Hollywood or maybe like making big films. And he's like in one of the biggest franchises that there is.
If we get you on Twitter, we can tweet him, ask him to come on to the podcast.
Why don't you come out to Minnesota?
So toward the end of the film.
Okay, so let's
get to the last kind of section.
The last section. You wanna. This is it.
I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this.
For 2 hours. 2 hours and 11 minutes we've been waiting on this.
If Greaves would have been here.
Oh, God, yeah. I hope Greaves sees it, and then we can do a second reiteration of this. Yeah.
So, one of the pieces for me of this entire movie that fell absolutely flat was the final rebellion celebration.
Yeah. And it kind of did in general. Like,
it
in
just
general.
Didn't feel good. I remember at the end of Return of the Jedi. Was it Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, it was Return of the Jedi. It was the last time they did it.
With the Ewoks.
Ewoks, yeah.
So one of the things they did here really nicely, again, fan service, fanfare, is they showed the Ewoks.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Me too. I'm a big fan. Big fan. I know some people hate it. I love
the Ewoks. It's not because they're cute. It's just a completely different race of character. very Jim Henson-ish.
Yep.
I love that whole
Very
thing.
out of the 80s.
There was actually a scene in this film. Sorry to go backwards, but you know the guy that was giving the message from the spy
Yeah, it's Mark Hamill.
at the top of the ship that
Yeah.
was handing it down.
Yep.
I thought about you when I saw that because I know that in The Mandalorian you didn't really like
Nick Nolte's character.
Nick Nolte's character because his character
eyes, at
wasn't
least.
talking
Yeah.
it the way it didn't match.
Yeah.
In this movie, that character that was giving it down, I don't know if you noticed. You'll have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember it.
His voice didn't match up with how
Yeah.
it was at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if Ethan noticed that because he hated that in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And it just kind of seems like an accepted piece of the universe now, where like
Yeah.
these types of characters that are run by that kind of puppetry,
Yeah.
just they don't link up ever, and no
Yeah.
one cares to do it.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
Fuck it.
Fuck
Why?
it. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Anyway, so I digress. So the last when the Ewoks were celebrating, and you had Anakin. Well, in the further versions of the DVDs or Blu-rays, depending on what you're watching, you had Yoda, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and one more person, Darth Vader. Well, Anakin was Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You had them all standing around.
Force
Who else
Ghost.
was it? There was one more guy.
No, it wasn't.
Yoda, Anakin, Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan, right? Was
Yeah,
it
it was
four?
3. No, it's Anakin Skywalker, who's Darth
Yep.
Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Yoda. That's
So it was just the three
It's
of
the
them?
three of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they came out with the
special edition replaced them with
special editions,
replaced
put the
him with Hayden
actual
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen, which I liked.
Yeah, you like
Because
that?
you know what? If you're going to make him a part of the canon,
Yeah.
reflect it backward.
Yeah.
That was great. So here's what happened for me. That was a great way, that whole celebration with the Ewoks.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a celebratory thing.
Yeah.
I was, emotionally celebrating with them in that
Yeah.
scene. This film shit the bed on that.
Yeah, yeah.
The celebration felt forced.
Yeah.
It didn't feel authentic.
Well, the whole entire universe showing up to the fight felt forced. Like they're like,
sure, but
it was
you
like
didn't see
ridiculous.
you didn't see the universe celebrating.
Yeah, exactly.
You just saw this small little celebration of these rebels back on this island
That's
where
it.
they're like coming together and blah 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 whatever.
Yeah.
And during the celebration,
Here we go.
This is why
2019 and intersects itself.
this
with
is why
Star Wars.
This is why I'm saying I'm glad you're not monetized yet,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't want you to lose.
Yeah, I'm not losing anything.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. But I'm not the only one with this opinion. I've
Yeah.
seen this on YouTube now.
Yeah.
They have to have this lesbian kiss.
Yeah.
I hate that I even have to preface this because
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit that I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to anyway, just for
Yeah.
the sake of the podcast. I don't have any problem if you're lesbian, if you like men or women, same sex, different sex. I don't care.
Yeah.
Live your life, do your thing. The fact of the matter is, in the Star Wars universe, this has never been a thing.
Yeah. It's not established.
It's never been something that we've had to think about, that we've had
Yeah.
to see, that we've had to establish.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it's all for Disney
Yeah.
and JJ
Yeah.
to feel like they're somehow, again, pandering to the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
and
Which, by the way,
saying-
we're not happy with that because it was such a bitch ass pander.
Well, and it was just-
people were upset that the LGBTQ community was upset because they did that because there's been no establishment before.
so-
they were pissed that they pandered to them.
Right.
So it's like, why didn't even do it? Because no one's. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when Hillary Clinton says that she carries around hot sauce
Yeah.
in her fucking purse.
Yeah.
And Sway from the Sway in the Morning Show says, you know that people are going to accuse you of pandering, right? And she goes, well, is it working?
Yeah.
End quote.
Yeah.
Right? People pandering for the sake of pandering pisses me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it really
Because
doesn't
it did
fit.
I saw it. I was like, did they just do that? You know, like
So-
it was just again. I'll preface this too because I have I'm totally on board. Support everything LGBTQ, whatever. I'm totally on board. Do it again. Do what you want. But it totally. You're like, did that just happen? Like it's one of those things where you're like, wait a minute. They weren't even established characters. Like one was a starfighter. One was a general. By the way, which. She kind of had some lines in Last Jedi.
She
She's
had
in this
very
one.
little screen time.
Very little screen time, and you're just like,
I'm talking like maybe
wait a minute,
15,
what?
15
like,
seconds, 20 seconds
like,
total.
You're just throwing it in at the end, you know, like no character establishment, no like this is my wife or whatever. Because they did it in Star Trek Into Darkness, where because George Takei's character, he's gay, but the guy, the Asian guy,
George Takei.
Takai, or whatever, is the guy that plays him. I forget. He's a really good actor. that's in the reboot of Star Wars. They don't even show them kissing. They just show them like he's at home with his husband.
Star Trek?
In Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah.
And they show him when they're home and into darkness. They're like, oh yeah, he's gay. Like but they don't like force it. They're kind of, he's like, so went home to my husband. Here's my kid, and then that's it. That's all they show. So it's a very subtle, like that's his life. And then they show, but then again, then they establish other characters when they go home, and they do this and they do that. So it almost flows a little better.
Sure.
And for Star Trek Into Darkness, when they show that, this one comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, whoa, wait, what? And then it's gone, and you're like, was it even necessary?
Did I just see what I just saw?
Yeah.
And so I was literally, and again, I said this earlier, I was sitting on the quote-unquote edge of my seat, right?
Yeah.
I was literally leaning forward,
Yeah.
kind of watching this film like this, like just watching it, like
Yeah.
trying to take it all in because it was happening so fast.
Yeah.
And I saw that kiss,
Yeah.
and I was so startled.
You're like, wait a minute, what?
Not because of the fact that I saw two women kissing, because generally I'll look that up online, right?
John, we spent a lot of time on that on Google.
You know, true story.
True story.
I literally leaned back in my chair and unintentionally kicked my bucket of popcorn that was on the floor. And so, of course, the couple next to me probably thought that I was some intolerant, gay-hating, whatever, because I'm kicking my bucket of popcorn and leaning back like this.
Yeah.
But it was true. I sat back.
You just said, yeah.
The problem for me in that entire section of that scene, though, was that it completely distracted me
From the celebration.
from the celebration that I was already having a hard enough time getting emotionally invested in.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, too, that's Disney doing again, that's something that's inserting the culture or whatever of the time, inserting itself into a universe that you're like, you know what? Maybe if you establish something, it could work. Maybe finesse it if it works.
It's supposed to be a timeless universe.
But it's a time, exactly. Like, this is a whole other world. Like, again, totally support that, do whatever. But on the aspect of when it comes to this film, it's not just that. It's like if you introduce anything, like we've been bitching about other shit for hours. Like, this is a small, minor detail. I mean, we can go,
But it's arguably the one that bothers me maybe the most.
Yeah,
because it just felt so forced.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. In international markets,
they took it out.
Yeah,
Singapore, they straight up cut it. So that's like, you don't even
so
care.
how progressive are you?
How progressive
being?
are you, Disney? Yeah.
This is not a win for anybody.
Yeah.
This isn't a win for the community. This isn't a win for the film goer. This isn't a win for the universe. This is them literally putting something in to pander inappropriately, to take it out for certain markets, to establish that who you choose to have sex with is somehow important in the universe.
Star Wars.
When in no film has it ever been a thing.
Yeah.
Sex in Star Wars has never been a thing.
It's never been a thing. Even though they talk about like lineage and all that, they don't.
Lineage is lineage.
But they don't talk about
who you sleep with, who you decide to kiss. For all I know.
Yeah.
For all I know, Chewbacca is gay.
Yeah.
He spends a lot of time in a spacecraft with Han Solo.
Yeah, then that was a funny, a little offside fact that they said he was 250 years old. Remember that?
I never remember hearing any of that.
Yeah,
canon
Poe
previous.
says that. Poe goes, we know you're 250 years old. You know, of course, you know how to play the chess game.
Yeah. Which I thought was a kind of a cool scene.
Yeah. Oh, that one ran out. That's it.
Camera died. That might be our cue. Yep. But it didn't feel at all good to me.
Yeah.
That they did that, and it wasn't that I had a problem with the fact that they did it. It was that they did it with zero context.
Yeah.
Zero reason. Completely unnecessary. Yeah. And then if you are, by the way, one of the LGBTQ community people who are upset that it was even in there, like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you were given something that other community members or repressed people didn't get or whatever. Like, Disney felt that they needed to go out of their way to pander to you. So congratulations, like, you got their attention.
Yeah.
But not enough to keep it in international markets. They're not going to stick their neck out for you that way. So good work.
Yeah.
You know, it just felt really unfortunate because at the end of the day, if you're LGBTQ, you probably would have went and saw the film anyway.
Yeah, you did, and you wouldn't have cared.
It didn't need to be there.
It didn't bother
you. Anyway, it took me out of the flow.
Yeah.
The last scene. Let's talk about this real quick.
Okay, the Rey Skywalker.
The very last scene.
Yep.
Rey goes back to Anakin's home.
Yep.
She has this cool moment where she takes a piece of metal that's under the sand and slides down, checks out his house.
Yep.
Just nobody around. What was the name of the
Tatooine.
Tatooine.
So she goes back to Tatooine for no reason because she was from Jakku.
Right, but she went there to kind of pay homage to Luke and Leia. The issue that I have with that is, here's the dog.
He's Ridley.
The issue that I have with that is, it's a cool scene, I guess, but at the end of the day, it was just to kind of wrap everything up.
Yeah.
And you have this like old woman who kind of comes out of nowhere and just is like, "Oh, who are you?" And she's like, "I'm a Skywalker," which I'm fine with the fact that she was a Skywalker. The issue that I had was that when they showed Leia and they showed
Force Luke.
Where was Obi-Wan?
Yeah. Where was Yoda? Where was Ben Solo?
Like all of the Force ghosts
should have been there. Just like the original trilogy.
Right. Yeah. Around the campfire. Yeah, they should have been there to kind of bring in the whole thing full circle.
They should have been. Yeah.
Because it was just like, okay, so I'm wrapping up
42 years of films. Yeah.
And I only get the two of them who were central in the last two films.
Yeah.
What does it do for...
Exactly.
So I told you the last time I was on your podcast that I wasn't watching any of the Clone Wars because I thought it was too childish. And then my nephew came over and I started watching it just to turn it on. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
It's written by people that wrote the movies.
Yeah.
Anakin's a huge central figure in that.
Yeah.
So is Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I believe. I think it's Obi-Wan who's in that.
Yeah.
Voiced by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Is that Obi-Wan?
I think. Yeah. Yep.
He's in that. He's in the Clone Wars. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he wasn't there just felt like they weren't really wrapping. Yeah. JJ had a chance to really wrap it up. Like, you want to talk about fanfare?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you took her to Tatooine. You're fanfaring it. You might as well just go all the way. Yeah, because that's the thing too. I agree with you, and because they ended the shot with her. Now, granted, I was like, she wasn't a Skywalker. She says Skywalker. Take it or leave it. I didn't think it was that great of a move, but whatever. It's ending 42 years. Who gives a shit? But again, I agree with you though. With the Force Ghosts, they should have all been there because they're deciding to end it on the they're deciding to end it with the two suns, which is one of the most iconic shots in the Star Wars series. So they're fanboying it up. This is the whole last 3-4 minutes.
And she puts the lightsabers in the sand, which
then,
is going to come back in future movies.
Possibly. I know they wanted to end it, but maybe.
But at some point, let's just say 10 years from now,
it's given it breathe.
Someone's going to go back and find it because you don't just take a prop and just pretend like it didn't get placed somewhere for no reason.
But again, though, another thing too, I guess for me here going, that's cool that she went back to Tatooine. It just didn't give any context. Like, it just shows up on Tatooine. It's not like, hey, I'm going back to, like, it's just like, I'm on Tatooine now.
And I think the real reason she went there was to bury the Skywalker, the Skywalker.
But now she's lineage. Like, I'm Rey Skywalker, and you're like,
well, but right, so whatever. Again, I was having this conversation with my wife. I'm okay with that because, in my opinion, that's the whole thing is. Throughout the last few films, she was told essentially that it didn't matter who she was.
Yeah.
Where she came from was completely irrelevant.
Well, I think that was just the mistake of The Last Jedi. I think that was the aspect of the Johnson interpretation of how he wrote it. That was a giant, huge misstep, was saying she was nobody. Because what happened in this film? They said, nope, we lied to you. You are somebody. You're fucking Palpatine's daughter.
Well, in the whole first film, The Force Awakens was about establishing who
is she? Right. Yeah, you say, who is she? Everybody's leading up to it. Shit on that the second film. Third film says, sorry, just kidding. You're a major player in this motherfucker. Right. So, yeah.
I'm okay with the fact that she identified with the Skywalker again.
Yeah,
based on the premise that she was essentially raised by the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
She was trained by Leia. She was trained by Luke. Yeah. She identified as
also
a
another
Jedi.
Cool, I did like that scene, though, when Leia and Luke were training. I did like that.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
It's
they
totally
showed the younger Luke and the younger Leia.
And the younger Leia. And then she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to be whatever. And I like that aspect because it did give more depth to the universe. Again, something that should have been done
earlier
in the second film or beginning of this film, like or something. Because they it felt like a reshoot. Like, oh, shit, here's an idea. Let's go shoot it and put it in real quick to, like, give it more context. And they did. They, like, went deeper. But, again, it was almost too fast. It was too quick, So, hey, bud.
Is he making his podcast debut?
He is. Well, that camera shut off. This is the only one that's still going.
Well, you're looking right at the camera.
I think.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my God, did that one shut off?
Well, you just lost half your footage.
We did.
It's a good thing the podcast is still running.
Yeah, I'll have to see how far that went.
So that's kind of, I think, the movie.
That's it. Yeah, the podcast is good to go. It's
in
the
a
video.
nutshell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
overall, I ended up walking away saying I was satisfied.
Yeah, me too.
By the job that Abrams did.
I would go see it again. I'd see it again in theater.
Well, honestly, I think you kind of have to.
Yeah,
because it happens so fast.
So much stuff.
It makes me wonder how some of these YouTubers, right, within hours of the movie coming out, they had YouTube videos just picking it apart, plot point to plot point.
They have followers they want to see.
Right, and you need clicks, and there's clickbait. Yeah. Do you believe, though, are you of the theory that I am, where there was this created rage culture around the film for people to get clicks or people to get attention?
No,
people talking about how much it was bombing, because I don't think that's going to end up being the case.
The lead up to it was justified because of Last Jedi, because these are such big fans. They wanted to see something good, and they felt like Disney was mishandling it. A lot of it comes from the aspect these fans are pissed about Disney handling it from The Last Jedi, because the film to them felt like it was shitting on them, shitting on their big, a giant, because that's a big thing. People love Star Wars, and they felt like they were shitting on them for it. And I think a lot of the rage culture from that wasn't stemmed from Rise of Skywalker. It was stemmed from they don't like Disney handling it, and what Disney has said, and what Rian Johnson has said. Like Rian Johnson said, I don't care. I don't care what the fans think. You don't shit on your fans. Like you don't. The people that
they weren't his fans.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not a guy to be like, yeah, I got my own. I'll bring in a bunch of money. No, you're not. You're Rian Johnson. Nobody hardly ever knows you. You don't have a filmography like J.J. Abrams or anybody else with these. You don't. And so I think that a lot of that was surrounding people, and a lot of the fans that have did those review, they were doing all these things leading up to it, and then once it released, a lot of them kind of changed their tone. They're like, they did what they could do. They're never going to be happy, but at the same time, they've said, I've seen some people say The Last Jedi wasn't that bad, and
I'm in that camp.
But they also say though that The Rise of Skywalker, we didn't like it, but we saw what they tried to redeem.
Right.
And we're happy with that. Like, they're happy that they actually tried.
And at the end of the day, I think you have to step back and just say you have 44 years of canon.
Yeah.
Over 44 years, you're going to have a divided fan base, and you're going to have people that don't agree on A, B, C, D. People hated Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, but now you look back on it and you go, it wasn't that bad.
But the thing is, though, you still can't. I think what the mistake they made, though, with Last Jedi and it essentially did take the IP of Star Wars and lowered it, because current generations don't really give a shit about Star Wars. They don't. It's carried over from people who loved it from the 70s, who their kids then know about it, and then maybe through some of the 90s, but it's not as prominent. So when you shit on those older people that they're like, well, we're not going to take our kids. We're not going to go see it. We don't like it. We grew up with this. That's the people that you need to win over, or at least fanfare to, and they didn't in The Last Jedi, and that's why I believe this film won't be as big as it could have been. And Disney realized that, because you look at the Star Wars franchise within the Disney IP, it's producing money by all means, but it's not making as much as it should have, and they're losing the credibility of what Star Wars was. So therefore, you fucked up. You took a giant thing that could have made you even more money, and you screwed it up. And they're identifying that. Like Bob Iger, the president of Disney, stepped in and made them reshoot like the whole last act. Like J.J. Abrams is like, Last Jedi. They're throwing small amounts of shade, but when you have a ton of insiders that are coming out of Disney saying this is what's screwed up, this got screwed up, leaks are coming left and right.
They have to be happy enough with what they ended up with.
They have to, yeah, and they know they can't redeem it, but they fanfared it towards the demographic of the people that love Star Wars, because they have to.
And they're banking now on the fact that you've got The Mandalorian, which is going to be streaming.
Yeah.
You have a standalone film coming, or a standalone series coming out on. Is it? It's not Lando, is it?
No, it's not Lando.
Who's the standalone series they have coming out?
I don't know right now.
They have another standalone series coming out with one of the focal characters from the original series. So the Mandalorian is the first of multiple.
But here's the kicker, though: they also canceled 2 trilogy films because the guys that created Game of Thrones walked into Lucasfilm and they were like, "Fuck this, we're out." Yep. They're not dealing with it. Yep. So there's a bunch of shit going on at Lucasfilm that they did not want to deal with. That they turned.
Weiss?
Yeah, Benioff and Weiss. They walked away from a 3-film deal from Star Wars because they could not handle the producers on Star Wars, i.e. Kathleen Kennedy. And then they were going to have Rian Johnson direct another Helm. He was willing to do it. He got canned after Last Jedi because no one wants to see that. Like, even I would be like, fuck that guy.
It would be a very different way to end.
And also 3 films. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So they canked his trilogy. And then Solo, didn't break even. It lost money, but it's a decent movie. But that's why they canceled a lot of other films that were supposed to be spinoffs, and they focused solely on Rise of Skywalker because they don't know.
As they should.
And they did.
As they should have.
They came back. They tried the best that they could. They knew they couldn't redeem it completely, but at least they did enough to get the fans back.
And
like
we can't
they had me
really,
back. Like if they did another one, I'd be like, I'm going.
And they can't really get into it. We can't really get into it today because we've taken too much time already. But like, I would like to hear your opinion on where you are with the Mandalorian now, because the last time we talked, you weren't that big of a fan of the Mandalorian. Yeah. I think it's come a long way.
It's come a long way.
When you talked
last 3 episodes have been a lot better.
I really think that it's done a few things I don't like, but it's done more what I do like than I don't. So anyway,
that should wrap it up. That's 2.5 hours.
Jesus.
2 hours, 32 minutes. We outran our cameras. I didn't plug them in.
I'll tell you right now, anybody who stuck around this long is a complete nerd.
Which would be my dad.
They should question their life choices.
My dad will be the only one. Yeah.
Does he listen to all the shows?
Yeah, we got to speak into the mic. Okay.
Well,
should we wrap this? You want to hear it on the podcast, or do you want to?
Well, so we need to give preference now, or we need to give context.
So our wives have walked in.
Yeah, they walked into the room with the dogs.
Yep.
With the dog, single.
Yep.
And they're both sitting here.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
This is a microphone.
Oh, but you'll adjust me if I'm loud, right?
No, well, just keep this distance away.
Don't be too loud.
So, if you were not a huge Star Wars fan and you just saw the last 3 movies and compared them to the last 5 years of cinema without having any homage to the old Star Wars films, I think the last 3 films standalone were good.
Yeah. I think the trilogy's decent.
That's
it's just that, but even as a filmmaker, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker don't pan up because they don't make sense on the aspect of a storyline, because they start bringing things back.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think you would agree that these last 3 films were much better than what Lucas was doing with 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, well, that was also the 70s and
we're
80s,
really getting.
Yeah.
Well, no. I don't mean 1, 2, and 3.
Oh,
films.
episodes
I mean
1,
episodes
2,
1, 2,
and 3.
Oh,
yes.
These films have been a heck of a lot better than those
been.
were. So we're sitting here nitpicking and complaining about things, but it's because it's like, the car's gotten pretty fancy, and we have to find things to complain about.
Yeah, for the record, Lucas is not a good film director. He's not at all.
Not anymore.
He got lucky with Star Wars.
Yeah.
He got super. He initially directed the first Star Wars film in 1977.
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Did he do 3? He didn't do 3.
No, he didn't. He directed the first one, and then two different people directed
the second
He
one?
produced the second
That's
and third
right.
one, and then he directed episodes 1 through 3.
Yep.
And those were the ones that were critically panned.
So he did 5 total films, though.
Yeah, he did some other ones, but yeah.
Well, if you
right.
stuck around this long, we appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. So, all right, that's the Star Wars podcast. So I guess we're signing off.